Racing isn't easy, but experiencing it is. iRacing puts you in the driver's seat with the industry's leading sim racing game. Drive on laser scan replicas of the greatest racing circuits from around the world. Go head-to-head against other drivers chosen by skill-based matchmaking to ensure competitive racing at every level. Compete across all your favorite series. In officially licensed cars, engineered to deliver the most accurate driving experience possible. Join a race or host your own with players from across the globe. Race against the computer or in a league with friends. Feel the thrill behind the wheel. Visit iRacing.com.
Welcome one, welcome all to SimSpeed TV for the first of many big sim racing events in the AusNZ Sim Sphere. It is the Oceanic Sim Racing Bathurst 12 hour. Qualifying night yesterday was super exciting. Plenty of controversy, plenty of talking points to carry into this 12-hour race that is beginning in just about 20 minutes' time. Race day at the Mount Panorama Circuit, live on YouTube, Facebook, Twitch, and Kick. It's me, Reece Gardner. I've got David Haynes and Scott Rankin with me in the commentary box. Jay Kennedy, of course, is the one in control here, bringing you these live pictures. Bring you in first, David. Qualifying night was, as I said, marked by a bit of controversy. The car that we thought was going to be practically guaranteed pole position ends up starting in 15th place due to a qualifying procedure violation. It's going to be an interesting start for sure.
Yeah, good morning everyone. The biggest day of racing on the mountain all year, and what qualifying yesterday did show us though is the sort of the depth of preparation, strength of the teams we've got. We didn't see all the drivers in qualifying, obviously, and there's more great drivers that we're going to see across the 12 hours of this racing. Everyone wants to show up, show out, put their best foot forward for this. We saw some beautifully prepared cars. We saw a big variety of all of the different manufacturers possible, 12 different models of car across GT3 and GT4. So when we get this race rolling, there's going to be plenty to talk about. Lots of different teams from the Australian sim racing sphere, and that big question of the weather across 12 hours. We saw the super hot conditions in qualifying, and it seemed like Audis were pretty strong, Ferraris were pretty strong in that qualifying. But what about when it's colder in the pre-dawn before sunrise?
Yeah, exactly right, Scott. We are starting in the dark. And there's going to be a big stream of lights coming across the top of the mountain. I've been to the Bathurst 12 hour in the real world, and it is surely a sight to see, especially as they come across the top of that wall of sound approaching you. I'm really excited to see how the race start goes.
Yeah, let alone this is sort of the precursor to the real thing happening next weekend. One of the big things for me is I was really, really excited, really keen to go and visit this event in person this year. And unfortunately, that's the same day as the Blink-182 concert. And unfortunately, my wife said to me, look, Blink's probably never coming back. Bathurst will be back next year. So I'm going to this event next year, ladies and gents. I'm going to go along. That's where I'm going to get my first taste of the mountain.
And you didn't say, I know that you're leaving. You must have your reasons. Because I'm going to Bathurst, baby.
It was tempting, but then I wouldn't get all these little shots of zoo babies. And that's kind of the real reason to stay in this relationship now, so...
Yeah, fair enough. We're already getting the puns on here. There's probably going to be plenty of those over the first 3 hours we're broadcasting and the final 3 hours later today. Of course, the Mount Panorama Circuit, 23 turns of terror. It's certainly going to be difficult to negotiate this place in the dark with a full field of cars making their way around. But I think the big thing we've got to think about is strategy. GT3 cars with the fuel tanks lasting about an hour. There's going to be live race control with full course cautions manually started and finished with a safety car out on the circuit, driven by another driver in the server, David. I certainly have had plenty of experience with that. So have you. And so has Scott as well. We've had plenty of live race control endurance events, but we got to think about the maximum stint length for the drivers, 70 laps. We've got 3 driver and 4 driver teams, and there are different requirements for both of those team setups.
Yeah, so you're seeing the maximum stint length and how it all works around that, and then of course the minimum drive times depending on what your lineup looks like. Interesting thing is, I guess that applies both to GT3 and GT4, and the GT4 laps are just that little bit longer. So theoretically, a GT4 maximum stint, just fractionally longer. We saw the difference in lap time class to class across qualifying, about 10 seconds. Pole was in the 202s for GT3, it was in the 212s-ish for GT4. So then, of course, we get into the race, and it becomes a less academic question of the difference of speed between the two classes, and more a question of how does a GT3 safely get around GT4s for 12 hours? And of course, vice versa, if you're a GT4 looking to contend in that class, how do you stay safe for 12 hours with GT3s zipping all around?
Yeah, exactly, Scott. The traffic is going to be a massive factor here, and I think we'll still be pretty shrouded in darkness by the time the GT3 class comes around to lap the GT4s. So I think the drivers will have been grateful for getting all of that practice in over the course of the week, and probably setting up a few AI races after qualifying was over last night as well.
Yeah, I think that's a really, really important thing is absolutely traffic management. Catching at the wrong time, it's going to decide the race. I can recall my first OSR Bathurst 12-hour, we'd actually registered to try and run around in the GT4 class, and there just wasn't enough entries. So for me, this is a real highlight. I absolutely love having the mixed multi-class racing, and I wish it was something that we got to have a little bit more of, as that GT3, GT4 interaction. It's not necessarily, that we get to see every day. So I'm really, really keen about that, like you wouldn't believe at the moment. But yeah, look, it's going to be a long day. First and foremost is making sure you survive. This is the first day of the year where we officially get to walk out the most overused phrase in racing: buy your ticket to the end. So yeah, look, it's going to be a long day worth of racing action. Everyone's in their grid positions now. If you haven't got your final preparations in, if you're not prepared, it's now too late. The nerves are going to start to rise. The nerves have already risen a little bit for race control as well. So look, I mean, it's going to be a long day. Who comes out on top is now a question of putting all the right factors together over 12 hours.
Absolutely. Warm-up is on. Drivers getting their final preparations in for the race start, and look at the track and air temperatures. Only 24 degrees Celsius out there, David. There's going to be a lot of grip available to the drivers. It's going to be, this is probably a bit of an easy open door statement to make. It is literally night and day relative to how it was in qualifying yesterday. We had track temps soaring as high as 48 degrees during the day. We're probably going to be seeing that when we come back for the final 3 hours later today.
Yeah, exactly. A high 48 on track throughout qualifying. Hovered a little lower, around 46, 45 for some bits there, but 24 before the sun rises, and it normally does take a couple of hours after the sunrise before the sun's high enough in the sky to actually make a whole lot of difference. So you will have quite a few hours of cool track running, and we'll see which cars that sort of favors. And then the end is where it all matters, though, and you still be thinking about what was a good setup in those hot temperatures yesterday, because that is, again, what might matter right at the end of this race after the 12 hours. If you get there, you want to be quick in the final couple of hours. On board with Vermilion Motorsports 228 that was removed from qualifying last night after they ran out of fuel on track, and they just missed out by less than a tenth of a second on being in that super exciting shootout. But, the morning belongs to a car like that, with its ability to shoot flames into the darkness.
Yeah, absolutely. We're going to be seeing a lot of those flames from the McLaren MP412C, Scott. I think the Vermilion Motorsports McLaren entry is going to be one of the cars to watch, because you obviously weren't here for qualifying yesterday, but that McLaren just missed out on getting into the top 15 shootout. A fuel issue earlier in qualifying made them stop on track, and they brought out the first red flag of the qualifying session. They only just missed out by a few hundredths of a second in the end getting into the shootout. So I think that car and many others are going to be worth watching as they try and make their way up through the midfield.
Yeah, and it'll be interesting to see how they, progress as well. And I think there's a really, really big opportunity here to say, look at the progress that team has made over the last 12, 14 months. They are quite new. I think they actually only first started putting cars out about 18 months ago within the Australian Simsphere. So to not only see them start there, see some of the support that they've got, going on in the background. They're a real kind of underdog story, and now they're starting to really pressure in a class and a category that a lot of their drivers haven't done well, which is the V8 supercars. So been seeing a lot of progression over an extended period of time. I know Dave and I would know Kyle Ridley from the Formula V Australia Championship. He did exceptionally well there, nearly took the thing out. But yeah, they're a team that's on the rise, and they're a team that and a name that we're going to be starting to see, which is really, normally when you see a new team like that, they burst on the scene, have a big splash in the pen, and then they disappear as all their drivers go to other teams. That's not happening with Vermilion. That's going to stick around, there, boys. So.
All right. Looks like we are into the race session. And of course, there will be a big gridding procedure to go for here. Grid has been set, and we're getting ready to go now. Green flag has flown in the race session, and we'll be having drivers make their way out onto the circuit very soon. We've got a couple of formation laps to work out here. It's a big gridding procedure for the OSR Bathurst 12-hour, much like what we see in the V8 Sculpts Bathurst 1000 every year, with drivers making their way around, making sure that everyone is in order, and then finally we have the formation lap, and then the actual race start. It's going to be interesting. A lot of preparation going into an event like this.
I mean, it takes a long time or it takes a little bit to set the grid because it's a big grid. So we were looking at, was it 31 GT3, 17 GT4s, basically a 50-car grid, which fills out all the pit stalls here at Mount Panorama. And you get a great look at exactly how dark it is out there. Still, an hour or something away from a proper sunrise, but as Mount Panorama does, those fans, they have rolled out of their campsites up the top of the mountain. They're ready for this to get underway in not too long.
Yeah, for sure. We're getting a bit of an eye in now of just how the circuit looks in the dark. Of course, this is going to be roughly the view that the race leader has on the start, of course, with plenty more light behind them. The track will be lit up pretty well when all of the field is together, but I think if you're the one in the lead, Scott, cutting your way through this darkness is going to be daunting.
Yeah, it is, and generally it's actually a really interesting thing to sort of sit here and contemplate is the accuracy of drivers in the dark versus the day. There's a trend in sim racing, and I believe it's a trend that follows through to real life, whereby generally your laps in the better conditions, which is actually the overnight ones, aren't actually your fastest laps of the day. They're generally about 2 to 3 tenths of a second off, and that's the difference between being able to pick your markers, your apexes, and see through the corners absolutely perfectly, which you can in those first rays of daylight, and the difference between a pair of headlights. They're good, but they're not quite good enough, and it's something that I've always sort of watched and gone, oh man, look at that lap, that's a really, really good lap. 2 hours later, the sun starts to come up, lap gets beaten immediately. So, there's the first opportunity of what were we just talking about? Missed visibility? Yep, that's what it looks like.
Boring race. Release the unsafety car.
Yes. And I think all the drivers here on Zoom are going to be having a bit of a laugh at that. We've got Dan Stevens, part of Race Control, up in the top left of the screen. It's Cameron Dance and Isaac Edwards joining him on the top row there. Chris Blanchard, I think, racing in the darkness in the real world as well as the sim. Dan Yeaman is going to be racing in this one as well, part of the Drop Bear Motorsport team. Hello to you too, Gavin Barber, middle right. And we got Dylan Muller and Blake Warboys down there on the bottom row, along with missing the first part of that first name there. Greg Patrick, yes, that's the one, racing in VR. A few drivers will probably be going for that as well. We'll be checking in with these drivers over the course of the race. Plenty of quick ones up on screen right now. And I think all of them will have a chance for a good result here today if they play their cards right. Now, the Evolution Racing Team 261 car is going to be starting on pole position for the race. This is a talking point from qualifying yesterday, David. You and me were there to see it happen. It was a brilliant lap from Reese Gasol, and we thought that the Eclipse Sim Sports 56 Audi was going to be out on track after them to take pole position in style, but a bit of an infringement in the qualifying procedure from Dylan Burse. He ended up escaping back to the garage after he had already pulled to the pit lane exit, and according to the rule book, that meant that he couldn't then set his lap. So we got a Porsche on pole.
It kind of reminds me of some of the qualifying rules at Indianapolis for the 500 on bump day, where you put your car in the the certain lane, or you can pull your car out of the lane, but you pull your car out of the lane, your opportunity is gone. And in a shootout like that, I said no, that was it. You left your pit box, you joined the lane, you waited at the end of the lane, and then you change your mind, you didn't go when you were meant to, and it's those little things. So I guess one way to look at it, though, is that it was a disqualification from the shootout, but not a disqualification from qualifying. So they don't start at the rear of the grid. They start as if they hadn't settled time in the shootout, which means 15th. And of course, it means very, very lucky. Reese Gasul and that Evolution Racing team Porsche 911 are on the pole.
Indeed. And, well, Scott, I think that Eclipse Sim Sports Audi is one we're going to be watching very intently over the course of the first few stints, because that car showed magnificent pace yesterday in the full everyone on track qualifying session. They were 5/10 clear of the rest of the field over a single lap. So they've got their setup sorted. They've got incredibly quick drivers. We had some in the broadcast chat predicting yesterday that we'd see them in the lead by the end of the first stint. Do you think that's a possibility?
Look, I mean, it's on the cards. Certainly, it's not. You've got to remember that a full stint for a GT3 car around here is around in the range of sort of that 30 laps marker. Now, for me, that means that you're going to get about 60 overtaking opportunities. You combine that with the opportunity to overtake and pick up some spots on that lap one in the chaos, in the dark. I think they'll be a little bit more pedestrian. They'll be a little bit more clean, because they obviously know they're looking around and they're looking at their data and they're going, hang on, we've got a rocket ship here. The biggest thing that they've got to do in the back of their mind is make sure that they've still got a rocket ship come the final 2 hours of the race. And the easiest way to remove that opportunity is to get too aggressive early. Do they need to lead every single lap of the race? We're not going to lead the first lap. That one, unless obviously the top 14 cars just miraculously wipe each other out and they get through. That's about the only real opportunity to lead in lap number one. But there's only points paid. There's only prizes. There's only things given to the last lap of the race. So plan your race. Be a little bit more pedestrian. Can they be a little bit more aggressive? Will some of the competitors around them show them a little bit of respect? I was talking about this about Matt Vanderkran on Thursday night. He needs to get his elbows out more. There'll be some cars that do exactly the same thing. They'll just peel off to the side, go, I'm not racing this car. I'm preparing myself for that last lap of the race. So I expect them in the top 5 would probably be a good estimate. Leading the race, I don't think so.
Yeah, it's going to be tough. We haven't really seen yet what these cars are capable of in a race stint around here. We've only really been focusing on one lap pace last night. So I think everyone taking it easy on the start, hopefully. I really hope that we don't see any big incidents coming up the top of the mountain, but there's always a possibility. Bathurst gonna Bathurst, as we see making their way around 2 more of the cars down to the grid. The safety car is down on the start-finish straight right now, and it looks like the top 2, 4, 6, 8, looks like top 10 cars are now on the grid as well, just positioning themselves, engines off, waiting for everyone else to come round, and then when the time comes, we will get ourselves going on the formation lap, just bringing themselves up to the rear of the grid. The Pulsachuca Toyota team, John Merritt, qualified that car yesterday. It is Luke Turner at the wheel of that Ferrari. So I think you mentioned earlier, David, there's quite a few drivers that we haven't seen yet that are going to be taking to the start for this race. And I mean, I'm familiar with quite a few of them, but not all. So it's going to be a fun experience for all of us, just seeing how they match up pace-wise with everyone around them.
Yeah, and obviously there is a few cars we actually did see 2 drivers in qualifying last night, but most teams, we're talking 3 and even 4 driver lineups. There are drivers in these cars that we haven't really had the microscope on track. And obviously, per the rules, they're going to have to get out there for those minimum number of laps at a minimum, and potentially across today and 12 hours. Some teams will be a lot closer to an equal share across their drivers in this race as well. So the variables for the speed and the pace of each team sort of changes across the 12 hours as we go. The weather changes, different drivers come in and out. The traffic will change based on safety cars as well that will clump it up at points. And we didn't see any red flag interruptions to GT4's qualifying, but we saw a couple to GT3. So I don't imagine any massively long uninterrupted stretches of racing across the 12 hours. The chance of some kind of interruption out of a grid this size at least a couple times through the race seems pretty likely at the moment.
Yeah, and if you're wondering just how many cars are in the server right now, if we take out the 2 safety cars, we have 52 entries all up for this race. And there's, God, how many? 35 GT3s and 18 GT4s taking to the start. And speaking of GT4, Scott, I'm glad to see that there's quite a big field of GT4s. I know that in the real life 12 hour for the first couple of years GT4 was allowed. You know, there was only a very small amount, but there's been a really good turnout in that category for the sim version.
Yeah, do you remember? Well, I mean, it's all sort of transitioned back to being part of the Bathurst 6 hour now. You know, that's sort of where the slower cars run, and it's become a GT3 only field. But I really miss the days where it was like marked cars and all of those different class. Was it Class X and the celebrity classes? Although I believe a lot of the celebrities were mixed in with the marked cars. But you know, it was a real celebration of Australian racing culture. I mean, every event's got a transition, and I think what they were targeting was a real explosion onto the global stage and pressing for some of that international attention of being a GT3 only event. Could you imagine if we got 50, 60 GT3 cars only out and around the Bathurst these days? We're going to see an increase in those numbers in the real life thing next weekend, you know, which is awesome. But this, for me, this is what I prefer. I really love the mixing of cars. The decision was also made by OSR. They was sitting there going, well, our numbers state per our initial regs says 35 GT3s and 15 GT4s, but they had 2 extra GT4s, and the admins sort of talked amongst themselves and went, it'd be really disappointing if we had those 2 or 3 GT4 cars miss out. So let's just get them in. And how good is that? Like, that's just a great decision. That's a best case. Yeah. Do we get 2 GT4s for the GT3s to deal with out on track? Yes. How much of an issue is that? Next to nothing. So it's actually just a good decision all around. I'm cracking. I'm really, really keen for this, and I would like to say to a lot of people out there as well that are watching along, I think GT4 is a really, really interesting space in the Australian overall racing culture, not just sim racing culture this year. It'll be one of those events we're going to watch that space a lot more.
Yeah, certainly. There's so much to think about in the GT4 class. You know, they might be the slower class around here, but the talent level is certainly the same as it is in GT3, David. We've got Trans-Tasman Racing starting on pole in the GT4 class in their McLaren. Jake Burton putting in an absolutely stonking lap there. And Luis Paulo Gallon and company in the Mercedes starting behind them. I think the battle for the lead in GT4 is going to be one for the ages this year.
Yeah, it was pretty competitive in that GT4 qualifying session as well, wasn't it? Uninterrupted 30 minutes. Again, a good variety of manufacturers there with the McLarens, with the Mercedes. We saw an Aston Martin up there in the second row of the grid for GT4 as well. So again, you know, we look forward and wait and see which one looks strong in the dark, which one looks strong when the daylight hits Mount Panorama. But we know it's not a weak driver combination either out of those teams in GT4. It's not the also-rans. There are some super, super competitive cars and teams at the pointy end of that GT4 field as well. Have maybe seen an opportunity for a little bit of glory in the less aerodynamically dependent cars.
Yeah, that's something that we need to think about as well, the aerodynamic differences between the classes. The GT3s are 10 seconds a lap faster around this track than the GT4s are, and the GT3s obviously have a bit more aerodynamic capability to work with. I'm always interested in the evolution of the GT3 class. Starting out, obviously, as a bit more of a clubman style category, and the cars were a bit more similar to their road going counterparts than they are today, especially in the last 7 or 8 years. GT3 has transitioned into this very sort of almost prototype adjacent category. They are, of course, still very similar to their road-going counterparts in terms of bodywork, in terms of the basic setup of the chassis, but they are purpose-built race cars through and through. I think especially when you think about the Ferrari 296, David mentioned yesterday that Orica actually prepared that car in the real world, and it's got a lot of tricks when it comes to putting the body parts on that carries over from the prototype world. But the point I'm trying to make here is that GT3, they've got wider chassis, they've got much grippier tires, they've got plenty of aerodynamic grip across the top, and plenty more power than the GT4s. So Scott, traffic, once again, going to be something they'll have to deal with quite a bit over the course of this race. There's plenty of long straights around Mount Panorama, so most of the passes I think are going to be simple, but when they come across that G4 traffic across the top, there's going to have to be a lot of trust between the drivers to get that working.
Yeah, and it's one of those ones where I see a lot of attitudes of drivers, particularly in their earlier days in sim racing. You got to go through sort of an evolution of understanding things, and particularly across the top of the mountain, it's just such a unique experience. It's not about the only place in the world where that kind of experience somewhat gets recreated is the Nürburgring, some of the faster parts of the Nürburgring. So any drivers that have done racing there, any drivers that have done racing at Bathurst, the skills are relatively similar in terms of their compatibility. But you're right, it is about trust, and the key thing that's different to regular motorsports in class racing within one class, and how that's different is actually comes down to, well, you're fighting for a direct position. It's not the same, right? So in terms of things, what I like to talk about is it takes both cars to facilitate a pass. Yes, the GT4 is going to leave the door open, but at the same time, the GT3 is going to make sure that until they're clear, they don't track out a little bit. They may be expecting. We're seeing a little bit from the Daytona style classes, the IMSA style classes. One of the biggest ones, within the prototype classes in the GT3s, the GT3s have got a little bit better initial drive off the corner. So you quite often see GT3 cars driving in the back. Not going to happen here. Because the GT4s just don't have that. But again, it's facilitating across the top. It is doable, but it takes two to tango, and it takes a switched on head. If you see a GT4 that's wide and it's going to whack the wall, maybe ease off on them, give them, a little bit more room, because it's just going to take a little bit more patience. I expect for probably the first 2 hours, you're going to see people just really figuring it out, assessing things, assessing where you can, where you can't, and from there it's going to progress.
Yeah, and well, as the race wears on and we get green flag stints going for maybe an hour or more at a time, the field will spread out and we won't be seeing traffic be as much of a factor. But of course, we do have those full course yellows in effect, David, when there's an incident out on track. This being an oceanic sim racing event, the no escape rule is a big part of the regulations. If there's a big crash and you can't get back under the pits to the pits under your own power, you will have to request a tow from race control. We saw that affect the qualifying session yesterday. It wasn't a safety car, but it was a red flag that they would bring out when someone was stopped out on the circuit. But here in the race, they will bring the safety car back out and put everyone together. Doesn't work like the automated iRacing safety car. There will be a bit more allowance for drivers entering the pits right away under safety car conditions. But that's going to massively affect the team's strategy depending on when the safety car is called.
And I think what we learnt is you can knock the nose and the tail off a Ferrari GT3 with a soft whisper, but you cannot kill a BMW M4 GT4. Those things are tank-like. So I'm not sure we're going to see any safety cars caused by at least that model of GT4 getting into the wall. They seem to just go and go and go. But yeah, again, it's the safety car, the strategy, how that then works around your your drive times, your minimum drive times, etc. If you've got a driver that you put in just to clear their minimum drive time, a safety car comes out, well, it counts by laps, not by time, and you'll need to leave them in a little bit longer to clear that hurdle. Conversely, if you've got a driver who's 50 laps into their maximum 70 of their stint and a safety car comes out, you're asking questions. You're going, well, if we stay out, we can't run that much longer past this safety car. Is this where we change? So you do need to be flexible at all times. You'll have an idea of who's driving when, exactly what your strategy and everything might look like. When do we pit with safety cars versus when do we stay out? But there's always an element of uncertainty, and you've got to be flexible and roll with it for 12 hours.
Yep, twice as long as a Bathurst 1000 usually takes. And if you're interested in watching along with the with everything going on track when we are offline, or if you want a little bit of extra information now while we are broadcasting the first 3 hours of the race, you may have already seen it in the broadcast chat. We have posted a live timing link. Thanks to grip.com, we have live timing up, and you'll be able to see everything going on out there. Sectors, track map, relative positions on track, everything is there. Big thanks to Grip for providing the live timing for this race. But we enter the final 20 minutes before the race officially goes green. Everyone just making their way down to the bottom of the circuit again to take their places on the grid, and then they'll all form up behind the safety car for a formation lap, and we will get the green flag. The anticipation is climbing here, Scott. I always love this phase here. You keep glancing at the clock, only 19 minutes left before we get this race going.
Yeah, and the other thing is that the last car is now rolled out of pit lane, so everyone's now out on track. This is unique because of the procedures that are required to get this to work. I mean, we talk about this being a special event. It is a special event. It is obviously the flash in the pan, but the way that it's run here, there's a level of uniqueness, and this event requires a level of nearly, what do they call it, bespoke kind of rule sets in place and bespoke kind of procedures that we don't see anywhere else in sim racing. And for me, that really brings it back to the essence of what the real world race is. You talk about things and you look at the cars that are out on track at the moment, they're all sitting there on the grid. When do you see that anywhere else in sim racing? You don't. This never happens. So what that takes from a driver's perspective, you've really got to get yourself clued in nice and early. Read the rule book, read the procedures. I spent probably for my first one of these, I spent 2-3 hours just making sure I went through everything, and I go, okay, here's our procedure book, here's what we need to know for the early phases, and then here's some generic notes on safety car procedures and things that I can pass on to my teammates. Because if we've already seen it in qualifying, you get your procedures wrong, you're already getting penalized very, very early on in the piece. So getting your little nuts and bolts and everything tightened down and clamped and screwed in place, making sure you've got an engine switch off button in place, because if you don't have an engine switch off button in place, your engine's blown sitting there on the grid. You're sitting there for so long. There was just some discussion actually in the race server as well about GT4s and making sure you can get those cars back started. They don't have a clutch in the case of the McLaren. I think every other car actually has an active clutch, but the McLaren itself doesn't have a clutch. It's an automatic clutch in that car. So they've basically got to make sure that when they start that car, it's in neutral, to make sure that they get that car fired back up again. But look at these 2 rows of cars so deep back down the field. It's making sure we knew exactly what our pre-race procedures were. We know what to expect. We know what's going to be a little bit outside of those. Then it comes into your race strategy. When a safety car comes, the best possible thing you can do is have about 5 sets of notes for 5 different scenarios and where people are in the strategies, and then make a quick call based upon one of those scenarios. If you're sitting there and a safety car comes out, do we pit? I'm not 100% sure. Do we pit? What are we thinking? We've got to make this choice. You've gone past pit lane entry. There's your opportunity to get a free pit stop out of the way. You fall to the back end of the grid. So it's planning a little bit of preparation. It's not much. We're not sitting there and going, you need to have a 30-page document of exactly how the race is going to go. You don't need to have a Ferrari, Red Bull, Mercedes, Formula One-esque simulation done where they've run thousands of simulations of how the races look. No, we're not talking about that. Little basic things to just make sure, okay, safety car come out, it's in this window for this driver, that means we have to do a driver swap. Safety cars come out, this driver's just got in the car, this is a fuel only stop, we'll leave him with the tires on, we'll get out nice and quick. Just little bits and pieces to build your race from the ground up. will mean that instead of halfway through the race, you're going, okay, we've made the wrong call here. We need to adjust that going forwards. Cool, you're already set. You're a few places further up the grid.
Yeah, I mean, especially the top teams are going to be thinking about all of that, aren't they? We've got really a who's who of Australian sim racing here, David. Evolution Racing Team, of course, starting on pole position, and we got the likes of John Peacenik and Rhys Gasul among the drivers in that entry. They are some of the quickest GT drivers in this region of the world when it comes to sim racing. I think the drivers at Blackout OPR certainly going to be working their way forward as well. We had Luke Rosella put in a fantastic time in the shootout session yesterday. WSR Esports butt kicker Alexander Bird qualifying that car. We got the Altus Australia squad as well. Andre Yusuf's going to be starting that Ferrari, but we've got Andrew Gilliam as part of the team in the 111 as well. And we've certainly seen his exploits in V8 Scops and Logitech G Pro Invitational to go off when it comes to pace there. All down this field, I'm seeing names that I recognize from a long way back, and names that have come up through the ranks in the last few years, shown themselves as super quick drivers. It doesn't matter what class you go into, there's going to be massive competition among some big names.
Yeah, a lot of recognizable names across the grid at the moment, and then some other names to come in later on. And a few of these teams do run deep. You're talking about the pole sitter from GT4, where Jake Burton looks like he's going to start that car, but they've also got Joe Mugford and Emery to go in that car as well. And there's a few others like this where you look at, their 3-4 drivers and you go, I don't see a weak one there. And that's kind of what you need, I think, for the 12 hours here. Is the middle of the race could be pretty important as well, as far as keeping your nose clean, as far as staying on the lead lap, all of these things just to keep yourself in contention towards the end of the race. It's a good looking grid in the dark, and we have basically all of the 12 possible models of car represented, and you do see a great variation not only through GT3 but also through GT4.
Indeed, you do. We had a bit of discussion in the in-sim chat. I'll make a correction to my earlier statement. Andrew Gilliam is not in the 111 Altus GT3. He's in the GT4, and they're going to be starting at the very back of the grid. Some chat with race control, Scott. He asked them if he could pit for fuel on the formation lap like the last row do sometimes at the IRL Bathurst 1000, but race control have certainly put that to rest. They have told him straight up, no, you can't pit on the formation laps. Everyone takes to the flag in place. So even now, drivers clarifying stuff with race control. We're going to be seeing a lot of that today, I think.
Yeah. I mean, I don't hate that. That's Andrew Gilliam sitting there and turning his race brain on, right? So that's him going, okay, this isn't specifically noted anywhere. Can we, let's test this? And he's doing that straight away so he avoids a penalty, right? So if he'd have come down on those formation laps, could have gotten a penalty. He's put the question mark out there straight away. One of the biggest things that I talk to a lot of drivers about in terms of strategy is if you haven't got track position, buy yourself some strategic position. It's all about these twisting sort of numbers. If you think about tires, fuel, and track position as sort of 3 sliders on a bar, that's basically the way that it all works. If you don't pit under a safety car, you get track position, but you lose strategic positioning in terms of things. You lose fuel position and you lose tire position. Tire position in GT3, GT4, not as relevant. So we're more focused in on that fuel position for those cars. So you gain track position, but you lose strategy position. If you come down pit lane, your pit lane slider moves towards the front end of things. You get a big chunk of strategy position, but you lose track position. Now, if we get a 10-minute stint in any of these, let's say we go 10-15 minutes beyond where a pit stop would happen, but we're still in the windows for getting to the end on that fuel cycle, some teams will come down, some teams won't come down. That's where you're going to get that track position trade-off versus your strategy position trade-off. That is what makes these things the spice of life. But again, everyone's tinkering with these things. Race controlling is one of the most difficult positions to do because it's like being a school teacher in many ways, because all the kids under your tutelage, they like to push boundaries. They really like to test everything that you're trying to set in place. And sometimes it feels more like a prison warden than it does a school teacher. I'll tell you that, Reese.
Yeah, I can imagine. I have a high school friend who actually went to uni as a teacher, and she decided, yeah, this isn't for me. Certainly don't envy the position some teachers are in. I don't envy the position that race control is in sometimes as well. And yeah, we do apologize. Some questions in the broadcast chat about whether or not we can listen into race control. We don't have that capability here in the sim racing space, but when information comes through, we will do our best to communicate it to you. Engines starting down on the grid. We're about to start the start procedure. The safety car is going to pull away momentarily. And we do have a few formation laps here before 12 hours of racing officially begins. So away they go. And this, aside from the run to the grid, is going to be the first time that drivers get a sense for what the track's going to be like in a full field. Remember, they're all together now. And I mean, the way the lighting of the headlights affects the way you see the circuit ahead of you, that's going to make a massive difference, David, to how the first lap is going to go for a lot of drivers. There's so much, so many photons being fired at every single part of this circuit as the field makes its way around.
Any of you watch that YouTube video about the Japanese scientist who invented blue LEDs and therefore made the combination white LEDs possible? Fascinating stuff. Fascinating. But thinking about, the lighting and all of that, Director Jay Kennedy pointed out to us that it's a setup option on a bunch of these cars to fit the endurance lights. Most of the Ferraris have got them. Apparently one Ferrari doesn't. It's back there in yellow with the Sprint IMSA headlights fitted. So they haven't ticked the box in their setup to have all of the extra lights, and Team Jinx shifters, well, I guess they're noticeable right now in the dark, but will the track be noticeable to them in the dark? Could be your concern. There's a few cars where you've got this option for what lighting kit you want installed. It's not automatic, it's set up, and the Lamborghini Huracan GT3 is another one of them where they just fit a big, Repco Super Cheap Auto spec LED light bar to the front. And there's a few others like that as well. The other thing that you get to set is your sort of trim lighting color above the door or wherever it is, depending on the model of car. Is the car struggling to... Oh, yeah, bump start it downhill. Yeah. Perfect. It's been a while since I've bump started a friend's car, but it's good fun to push a car.
Yeah, certainly is. The drivers are just all on their own, though, down there on the field. Andrew Gilliam in the Altus Australia number 5, the last driver to get rolling, as the front of the field is already through the dipper. Now, they're going to be touring around at about 90 k's an hour. 80 is, I think, the official pace car speed. So I think one more formation lap after this, and we'll be roughly in the window for getting this race started, Scott.
Yeah, and think about what's going through the drivers' heads right now. Obviously, tire temperature is one of those things. There's always that back and forth, that debate, right, about whether or not weaving at these speeds actually puts tire pressure and tire temperature in. To be perfectly honest, to everyone that's watching along at home, whether or not I'm going to sit here and debunk those myths, I'm absolutely not going to debunk those myths. But I'm going to give you guys a psychological question. Would you rather do something that has a chance of helping, or would you rather not do anything about it at all? And to be perfectly honest, even if it does nothing, well, I'm out there weaving to try and put something in those tires, because the first lap at Bathurst is notoriously difficult. So I'm going to try and do something about it. I
put this to you. If you come off your motorbike and go scrubbing across the gravel at 80 kilometers an hour, that'll put some energy into you.
See?
Yes.
I mean, you know, thoughts and debates. The theological questions of the next 4 hours have already started. How good is this, boys?
Absolutely, man. Yeah, I've always been intrigued at the debate, especially in sim racing, over whether weaving actually helps. I think it's another psychological benefit in that you're working the wheel. You're just refamiliarizing yourself with the steering response of the car. Yes, it's at low speed, but once you get up to speed, you have a better sense for how the car is going to respond the moment you turn in for Hell Corner for the first time.
Now they're rolling an opportunity to look at the grid order, I think, Reese.
Yes, good idea. We should go through everyone who's taking part in this race. Starting on pole position, the Evolution Racing Team 261. John Peasnick currently at the wheel of that car. DBM Beyond Blue in the Ferrari. Matthew Dench, who put in a great qualifying lap and shootout lap yesterday, starts on the front row with them. Blackout OPR, Dylan Shepherd taking to the wheel of the 43 for the first stint of the race. Then it's Daniel Ferguson, who's taken over from Alexander Bird in the WSR Esports butt kicker entry. Sixth place, Whipperman Racing 57. Luke Bergens behind the wheel there. Altus Australia, Andre Youssef piloting the Ferrari out of 7th. Vermilion Motorsports 28, Zach Rattray White staying in the car from qualifying in the shootout yesterday, starts at 8th. Rapid Team Rensport, the 911 Ferrari with Dylan McAuliffe at the wheel in 9th place. And then we have 95 Sim Sport 951 with Dylan O'Shea piloting that Ferrari, starting out of the top 10, Scott.
Oh, yep, I wasn't ready for that throw over. All right, starting outside the top 10, the 55 Summit Sim Sports Everest entry, 968 Drop Bear and Coasty with a number of cars up and down the field. XCM 100 out of 13th, 95 Sim Sport 95 in 14th, Eclipse Sim Sports 56 out of 15th, and then I believe 16th is going to be there we go, it's come back to me. Vermilion Sim Sports 228, the 17 Evolution Racing 260 car, WK&P Sim Sports 764, middle finger. Oh no, I'm looking deeper in the field. Sorry boys, it started already.
Yeah, it certainly has. Well, what I can tell you is Vermilion Motorsports 228 starting out of 17th, and then the top 20 rounded out by Evolution Racing Team 262, Lachlan Capel, with Dennett Racing's Matt Bailey behind, and Team VRT rounding out the top 20, David. And then, well, we're 2/3 of the way through this GT3 field.
Yep, indeed, because the remainder of the GT3s after Alpha Venturi Racing and Marino Morella is Cool Drive Racing Guy Leach here in the Mercedes, and then Ferrari 296 for Cam Dance for Orbit Drop Bear Motorsport. Behind him, another Ferrari. Miles Bond is going to be starting the Pie Floaters Ferrari. We've got another ERT Mercedes back there with Ian Ford in the 260. Behind him, I think actually, we'll see, because these are sort of 2x2 rows that they'll form up into later. Blake Warboys in WK&P Sim Sports Mercedes there. The GT3 field's rounded out by Middle Finger Racing in 26th. The yellow headlighted Team Jinx Shifters Ferrari with Henry King. And then Ashley Collins in HTS Racing Green. Brandon Smith in Code 9 Esports Ferrari. Jim Stoddart in FPS Evolve Audi. And we've got Blake Neck back there in the Venture IBM Sport by TSR Ferrari. And just a couple more GT3s, which is Rogue Sim Sport Blue, Vermilion Motorsports, and Fishy Motorsports. So you've got 33 GT3s.
Two less than what we had yesterday.
34.
Yeah.
I think there's one. Yeah. Race Control called it out. Somewhere 156, 157 was the car that we're missing.
Right, so unfortunately not all of the GT3s taken to the start here, but Jake Burton in the Trans-Tasman Racing GT4, pole position for the lower class, and he's followed very closely by Luis Paulo Gallon in the LP Racing Mercedes. That's going to be a great matchup, two of the quickest drivers in the country, with Kobe Williams as well, taking the Eclipse Sim Sports Aston Martin out of third in class. HTS Racing Yellow, Jared Knight, another Mercedes, and then the Slipstream Autosport Porsche Cayman. It seems the only Porsche Cayman in the GT4 field, and they've certainly done well for themselves, starting in the top 5. Pulse Tuning Toyota Echuca Beige, Timothy Harris in the first of our BMW M4s. Another Mercedes in the form of the 19 Purple entry was Sam Muir at the wheel of that one. And then we have the 2 Race on Oz cars, Dean Jacobson in the first, and then Benjamin Smith taking the number 15. SLM Motorsport, Kyle Ridley carrying the Sud Speed branding, another BMW starting out of 11th position. Then we have 2 entries from Veteran Gaming Australia, the first of them being Brendan Storer in the 103. Locked On Racing, Tim Cornt starting out of lucky 13th. The Mauler Racing entry of Kurt Chapman. That is a car that we saw have a few dramas in qualifying yesterday. Harrison Arendt in the Lame Sheep BMW, another car that we saw having some issues yesterday. Michael Arlett takes the 2nd Veteran Gaming Australia Mercedes out of 16th place, with Gene Newell in the Ned Whiskey White entry in 17th. And then we go to Greg Patrick, who we saw on VR on the Zoom wall, in the Full Send Motorsports 770. Then finally, we have Andrew Gilliam in the Altus Australia GT4. There is so much to think about here, with the safety car coming down into the pit lane as the field has formed up on Conrod Straight. Everyone in double file. Hopefully, we'll be able to get everyone in line by the time we get to the green flag. The GT4's leaving a slight gap to the GT3 class. And look at this, an absolute monster of a field, ready to take the start of the 5th running of the Oceanic Sim Racing Bathurst 12-hour. This is where the anticipation reaches its peak, but then we have to switch modes and get into race calling mode indeed. One more corner, the green flag will fly in just a few moments. It's John Peacenik versus Matthew Dench on the front row. Who will get the best start? Apex of Murray's corner, the green flag flies, and the OSR Bathurst 12-hour is go.
Oh, look at the checking up down the field too, Reese. Have a look at that.
Yeah, there was a little bit of an issue there. The green flag officially flies. That's a good start there from the Porsche coming up the inside, but oh, it's not good enough. Dylan Shepherd gets spun out. We've got the WSR Audi involved as well. Looks like one of the 9.5 cars. That's a bad re-entry there from Dylan Shepherd, taking out another GT3. Chaos here on the first lap as the GT4 field has to take avoiding action.
Matthew Dench is the Ferrari on the outside of turn 1 that has to wait for the whole GT4 field to come through, and through all of this chaos on lap 1. Looks like Altus Australia with a decent jump there as well. A couple of cars gaining some spots on this restart amongst all the chaos. Tyres will have been so cold after waiting on the grid after the slow formation laps. Colder than just when you leave pit lane.
Start under investigation from race control.
2 meatballs coming your way, the Fishy Motorsports 888 and the 23 WSR Butt Kicker Esports with Daniel Ferguson behind the wheel. Every other car seems in a reasonable position, is probably going to continue on here.
Oh man, that's certainly not the start that many drivers would have been looking for. Shocker of a rejoin, really, from the blackout entry, as pointed out. That was not what you wanted to see. Paul Warwick, look at how much left-hand down he's dealing with in the Fishy Motorsports 888. That car started last in the GT4, in the GT3 field. So their race has already got off to a poor start. But up the front of the field, John Peacenik has already rounded out a 2.3 second lead over everyone else. DBM Beyond Blue, Matthew Dench, they have fallen a long way down thanks to their involvement in the start shenanigans. They're with the GT4s right now as we see a pass between Ben Holiday and Dylan O'Shea. O'Shea in the 9.5 entry has to have a massive slide through the chase to recover that car and give up the position to the Pulsachuka entry.
Yeah, that was just aggressive, wasn't it? Just running somebody just basically out onto the grass, out of room. So it wouldn't surprise me if that sort of looked at when race control gets an opportunity. Remember what I said probably, about 15 minutes ago about making sure you got your race procedures, your race policies in check? The big one was, when is the green flag flying? Race control issued the green flag. Everyone else thought the field had gone. The difference between a regular race and an endurance race is generally you're going to have multiple spotters. None of the spotters towards the tail end of the field actually looked up and saw that there was going to be a big checkup, and that's one of the key factors to surviving lap 1.
Yeah, that's a real shame. So we already see Miles Bond and Rick Vincent taking to the pit lane in GT3 and GT4. This is very difficult to dissect. I think once everything calms down, we should take another look at that race start. Why not right now? This is the middle of the GT3 field. Jackson Rihanna in the Summit Sim Sports Mercedes. Oh, he got turned in on at the final corner. He was stopped coming out of Murray's.
Creates a bit of a gap behind him that then gets filled just approaching when the green flag waves. They span out 4 wide. So it's blackout OPR in the middle of a bit of a sandwich there between drop there, and Kant was on their left-hand side there as well. That's not great there.
No, that's going to be a big penalty coming blackout OPR's way.
And the other thing to consider as well is looking at Matthew Dench. The way he turned into that corner, I don't think he knew there was another car down the inside. I think he thought he was too wide.
Yeah, it's always difficult when you're coming into the first turn of a 12-hour race. You know, you're thinking about the long game, aren't you? And sometimes you can forget to really have your eyes on stalks. Well, the GT4 field is on now. Jake Burton leading from Kobe Williams. Luis Polo Gallon has fallen down to third in class, and he's got Matthew Dench up there making the moves on the top 2 in GT4 coming into the chase. As the DB and Beyond Blue entry tries to recover here in the initial stages. A good start from Jake Burton and the Trans-Tasman team, but I think good on Kobe Williams and the Eclipse Sim Sports crew to take advantage of the chaos and move themselves up into second place.
Already needing to worry about the GT3 traffic, but this is cars that were spun or damaged on lap 1 there, just working their way back ahead of the GT4 field for the first time. So already way more stress off that race start for the GT4 teams than they were expecting. They were hoping for a couple of stress-free laps. Didn't get that. And this is up front in GT3. You talk about John Kiesnick with that massive lead, but it is rapid fire, all of the cars behind.
Yeah, this is a great battle here, isn't it? Jared Knight has just made room for Jackson Rihanna in the Summit Sim Sports car. Meanwhile, we keep our eye here on the battle for 4th in GT3. Ben Holiday in the Drop Bear and Cosi car, chased down by Dylan McAuliffe in the 911 Ferrari. I know that's going to cause some confusion in hours to come.
Time Traveler goes back 100 years in the past, moves one rock. I don't know what to tell you.
Yeah, I know. Oh, man, it's a real shame. Maybe we should see if there's a TARDIS flying around somewhere. Meanwhile, down in the top 20 in GT3, just through the kink, Blake Warboys and Rob Carmichael. It's Vermilion versus WK and P right now. There's a little bit of back and forth now between these cars. It looks like the Ferrari has gotten a massive slipstream, and Carmichael's going to go for the move on Warboys, who's already had a bit of a tough start here.
I think Warboys is just being a little bit complacent, but correct me if I'm wrong, boys. Have a look at the front end of that Mercedes in the dark. Does that not look like a Bentley?
Yeah, a little bit.
Everything reminds me of her, bro.
Yeah. Oh, man. I really wish that the Bentley was able to be scanned into the sim before it was retired from GT3 racing in the official sense. It was always my favorite car at the real life 12-hour. You felt your lungs shaking as that car went past. Well, looks like a bit of a Ferrari Cup here in the midfield of GT3. I keep getting those class numbers confused there. Matthew Dench already trying to put the power down in the... hang on. The Vermilion Motorsports car is up into second now. Yep, Zach Rattray-White working his way up there. The Vermilion Motorsports car, of course, was involved. No, sorry. Matthew Dench's Drop Bear car was involved in the shenanigans on lap 1, and they are rapidly trying to make their way up to the rest of the GT3 field there. Meanwhile, Paul Warwick versus Dylan Shepherd. Shepherd's re-entry has earned a drive-through penalty for the number 43, the first of potentially many penalties that we're going to see through this race, Scott.
Yeah, and I think that one was a pretty slam dunk one, so, you know, get that out of the way nice and early. And I think there's another penalty coming their way as well, and that'll be for contact with Matthew Dench, so that'll sort of explain things. So they've had another look at that one. Remember how I said I thought Dench turned in and didn't leave enough room? Well, Race Control have had another look, but then again, you know, it was a 2 versus 3 wide. The first of the pit stops coming out as well, so this might be for damage as well to the back end of the GT4 field. And it's about getting yourself into this race, boys. Remember what we talked about earlier? Buy yourself a ticket to the end, get yourself a line, you know, spend these first couple of hours investing in the long-term health of your race. And there's a few guys who didn't think that straight away.
No, unfortunately. Well, Evolution Racing Team is one of the teams that has definitely thought about the long game. Peasnick, of course, starting from pole position and has been steadily working the gap out. It's staying pretty consistent at about 2.2 seconds, but that's all you need to do at this stage.
Pie Floaters are a lap down and they've rejoined directly between first and second place. So you see a car just behind the race leader. It's not second place. This is, I think, why we've got one of the veteran gaming Australia GT4 cars in the lane early. Oh. Pretty self-explanatory, but I was talking about how these GT4 cars are built so tough. That car made it back to pit lane without causing a safety car.
Yeah, so Brendan Storer brought that machine into the lane, and they've obviously got a lot of repairs to be done on that car. He's still sitting in the driver's seat, so we should see them back out on track pretty soon. Meanwhile, Pulsar Chuka Toyota number 64, Luke Turner at the wheel of that one. He's got Dylan O'Shea rapidly chasing him down, and look, another car behind, the Eclipse Sim Sports 5-6 entry. That's the car that started in 15th place, and we were expecting them to be racing for pole yesterday. Well, they've already made their way up from 15th to 8th spot. Damon Woods putting in some good passes and steadily working that Audi up the field. It'll be interesting to see how much further he gets.
And then the other interesting thing you'll notice is that WSR Esports Butt Kicker have got the fastest lap of the race at the moment, 32nd in class. So there are some really quick cars out of position. Got a car out of position at the chase just behind this inside of the top 15.
I think it was Cape.
Vermilion Motorsports 228 dropping backwards. The McLaren, no.
Well, there's your flamethrower, David. Jacob O'Reilly's trying to get it going, but it's bogged down in the gravel.
It's not about the fire pit now, it's about the sand pit, and that's where the McLaren's stuck. He's revving it, but he cannot get out of the gravel.
I think the drive shaft's broken. I think he might have lost a rear wheel. Oh, further dramas for the Vermilion Motorsports 228. They just missed out on getting into the shootout yesterday. And now it looks like their race might be over. Not even 15 minutes into the Bathurst 12 hour. They might be requesting a tow from race control pretty soon. We might see our first safety car.
Well, the tow request has gone out. So they're just holding them in position at the moment. But yeah, it definitely looks, if you have a look at the splitter of that car and the front end of that car, it's not sitting right. There's no connection. Is it the right rear tyre that's not connected?
It could be beach because the front right is missing, and that's causing the tub to sit on the ground, and of course then you can't get out of the gravel.
Okay, so this is how it happened. It was contact with the Evolution Racing Team 262. Lachlan Capel at the wheel of the Mercedes. Contact into the chase. Capel ping-pong straight into Jacob O'Reilly and sends him into the gravel trap. That's unfortunate. the chase is one of those places where you're going to see a lot of incidents like that. O'Reilly is not giving up. He's trying to get that McLaren out of the sand trap. It is moving, so hopefully we'll be able to see the 228 race further.
He's getting a little bit of drive, so it's 100%. Yeah, he does have drive. It's the tub on the front. It's a good spot, Dave. Yeah, so he's got it rolling. Now there has been some discussion back and forth, but they've got this thing. The other thing they will need to worry about is the engine temperature, because listen to the sound of that thing just revving its nuts off at the moment, trying to get some sort of drive. If they can get drive, they can get out of this sand. Well, pit lane entry is only just around the corner, and the field's going to be passed here in a few moments. There'll be an opportunity here.
Here we go, he's on the grass.
It's rocking, so it's 100% not sitting stably at the moment. I wonder whether or not he is only driving him. I'm not confident on whether or not that car's broken a drive shaft.
Yeah, the right rear is disconnected. I can see it. You can't really see it from this angle, but the right rear is sticking out relative to the other side of the car. So we'll see. He's come to a stop again.
Top of screen's also fun, where you've got too wide, too deep. So still all happening. It looks like it's going to be Eclipse's Audi around the outside there. A bit of bump drafting going on. And there's contact around the outside of Griffin's. Doesn't normally work, does it?
No, you can't go to the outside in Griffin's Bend. You have to stick to the inside, especially this early in the race when there hasn't been much rubber laid down on the racing surface there. There's such a huge crown in the road and a camber to the inside that you need to be sticking to the right through that corner if you want any chance of getting through it cleanly. Safety car has been called because Jacob O'Reilly, despite getting that McLaren onto the grass, was not able to advance further.
Even when he got it going just a little bit, the McLaren still wasn't looking good. Then you wonder if at that speed it could ever safely get across to the other side of the road for the pit entry as well. So they tried, but the damage was massive on that McLaren. Sees a bunch of cars like GT4s that are near the pit entry go, yep, time to top off the fuel. But we saw where the GT3 race leader was coming down Conrod Straight. Still a while before these GT3 cars both get to pit entry and or catch the safety car.
So it's only been officially 15 minutes of racing, and of course we have to take into account the small amount of fuel used on the 3 formation laps as well. So I think for the top of the GT3 field, the name of the game is to stay out, but we do have a couple going in there. Ben Holiday for Drop Bear and Cosi.
Tyre change is as good as a holiday, so Drop Bear and Cosi from 4th on the track can be one of the first in. You can understand the aversion of some of those leaders after just 15 minutes to dropping back into what's looking like ferocious battling in GT3 and then also the GT4 traffic as well, potentially. So they're thinking track position's king for us at the moment. Cars further down the order will take a gamble and Drop Bear will take a gamble.
Yeah, we'll see if it works out for them. There's been a change for position in GT4 as well. We see the Eclipse Sim Sports Aston in front of the TTR McLaren. Let's see where this move was made. It was Kobe Williams going for a big dive there at Griffin's Bend, and Jake Burton saw that coming from a mile back and went, yeah, okay, we're playing the long game here. Just let him have it. Question is, did that happen before the safety car was called? Well before. All right, cool. We're clear on that. Kobe Williams is clear. So, well, we have an Aston Martin leading in GT4.
Yeah, but
and look at that response from
anchors?
TTR.
Yeah, well, they've got a response. So remember what we were talking about, those sliders earlier on? TTR have gone, yep, we haven't got the track position at the moment. And they do have a reasonable margin back to 3rd place in class. So if they lose a couple spots, it'll only be a couple spots. This isn't going to be a long stop. They're probably not going to take tyres here. But this is something to just go, okay, we're just going to switch this car on a bit. We're going to switch the script just a little bit, play ourselves deeper. This will get them longer running at the back end of the stint as well with fresh air, whilst they're a lighter car, which means they're a quicker car. So this is all about making margins back in at the back end of the stint. When the other cars come into pit as well, they'll fill that tank back up again. That's going to make them, they're going to lose in the range of sort of 7, 8, 9 tenths, a full second potentially, when they fill that other car back up with fuel. And that is what we call a proper overcut, is where you just got the lighter tank for a longer period of time. You can really make hay at that period of time. They'll be slower at the start end of the stint, but it's only going to be a tenth, couple tenths sort of things. They'll be back in traffic. They can do some fuel saving to extend again that longer, lighter fuel period. But it's not as massive as it is when you're comparing a very light car compared to a very heavy car. So that's what this one's about.
My car to watch right now is the 23 WSR Esports, remembering they started inside of the top 4 and then dropped to the very back as they were in the gravel on the outside of Hell Corner. Well, this gets them back on the lead lap, gives them an opportunity to pit and maybe repair a little bit more damage as well. And that's the car that holds the fastest lap of the race at the moment, 31st in class, and was off the lead lap pretty much. They get an opportunity to try to buy back into this race. The car's looking pretty good. The fuel tank will be full, the tyres are new, and by what I can tell, this will allow them to catch the leaders and they will remain on the lead lap.
Yeah, that's very crucial for Daniel Ferguson and company as they exit the pits. So keep an eye out for the number 23 when we get back to green flag racing. Plenty of cars making pit stops under that safety car period. If you're following the Veteran Gaming Australia team, you'll be happy to know that Brendan Storer has brought the 103 back out onto the racetrack. They are a few laps down, but they are still running, and that can make all the difference in 12 hours time. As for cars that have taken either scheduled pit stops or repaired damage under the safety car, I'll go up in the order. Fishy Motorsports 888, they've already been out for 6 laps. SLM Motorsport has been out for a lap at the moment in GT4. We saw obviously the 23 taking a stop. We've also got the number 15 Race on Oz GT3, Benjamin Smith. The GT4, Benjamin Smith. That's going to be a thing for the whole broadcast, I think. Good old Gardner Gaff times 10. Locked On Racing, Tim Cornt, and Full Send Motorsports 770, Greg Patrick. 2 other GT4s in line then. The 770 did not pit. Andrew Gilliam has brought the Altus Australia car in. Sam Muir in as well in the 19 purple car. Rick Vincent in the Rogue Sim Sports Blue GT3 has also taken a stop. You got to go all the way up through Blake Warboys in the WKMP GT3, HTS Racing Yellow GT4 Jared Knight, and Jake Burton in the Trans Tasman Racing GT4 as waiver rounds are now starting for cars that are not on the lead lap. Matt Bailey, Jackson Rihanna, Henry King, Lewis Greathead, Ashley Collins, Brandon Smith, Ian Ford, and Guy Leach taking pit stops in GT3. Same can be said for Orbit DBM, Cameron Dance in that car, Rapid Team Rensport, Dylan McAuliffe, and of course the Drop Bear and Cosi entry. Those are all of the cars that pitted in the last 1 or 2 laps. The rest of them have been out for at least 5 laps. Everyone currently in the top 12 in GT3 has not taken a stop yet.
So interesting point out of that cycle as well is that, remember how we were talking about, you know, trying to apply your levers and the strategy. Well, SLM Motorsports in the GT4 category did attempt. So they heard safety car, and they're like, sweet, we can get a free pit stop in here. The problem with that strategy was that they needed to be rolling before that leader came down. There were about 3 or 4 cars at the back end of the train in GT4 that did actually come down to the pit stop. SLM was the only car not to get rolling and get back out of the pit lane before the safety car, before the leader came by them. So what effectively happened to them, they ended up in about 5th spot in the train, which was behind 4 GT3 cars. They lost the lap, which meant their, air quotes, free pit stop became a, well, unfree pit stop. So they've gone backwards right now.
Yeah, it's unfortunate for them, and good point made in the broadcast chat. The Eclipse SimSport GT3 up to 7th place, so their race is going pretty well right now, David.
Yeah, after starting in 15th, plenty of positions gained on that opening lap, making some good passes throughout this stint so far. And it's your top 13 of GT3 on the road that haven't stopped. Highest running car that has stopped, Drop Bear and Cosi, then Rapid Team Rensport, Orbit DBM, and Evolution Racing Team Lachlan Capel. So depending on if we get a long green run here or if they go safety car again shortly, I think some of those cars that have sort of topped it off just now are in a reasonable position, like Drop Bear and Cosi, like Rapid Team Rensport, Orbit DBM there. But the pace that Peasnick's had off every sort of start so far suggests he might be able to bolt away from this big group of cars once again.
Yeah, we also see that Matthew Dench has made his way back up to 13th. Oh, no. I was just saying. Oh, no. That's Matthew Dench that spun down Conrod Straight. Looked like a bit of a checkup in the field. And that was Ben Holiday in the Drop Bear and Cosi car. That's contact between the Drop Bear Motorsport Ferraris.
I would not want to be down in that garage right now.
Oh dear, what's the debrief going to be like at DBM after this one?
Could be a drop bear on the wall in that one, but the safety car's in and we're about to get racing once again.
Yeah, we are. All right. Yeah, someone doesn't look happy, and it's Dan Yeaman, the team manager of Drop Bear Motorsport. So here we go then, Ben Holiday into the pits as John Peasnick gets the race going again. You see the first hints of the sun rising to the west, to the east, sorry, over the Blue Mountains. And that is a perfectly executed restart from John Peasnick. It is on for second, though. We see Luke Bergens in the Whipperman Racing Porsche chasing down Zach Rattray White in the Vermilion Motorsport 28 Ferrari. And I'm seeing a potential move from Dylan O'Shea in the 9.5 SimSport car. He had a look up the inside of Jason Bentz in the XCM Audi. And look at that. Damon Woods in the Eclipse SimSports Audi says, thank you very much. I'll take advantage of that poor run off Griffins and move up yet another position.
I didn't have enough of it down the inside, had to back out of it, got a bad run off there and up the really steep part of the hill to the cutting and tried to go for a spot, ended up losing a spot to probably one of the cars we're expecting to see gain a lot of positions. Bottom of your screen is the replay. Friendly fire before the restart.
Yeah, that's a real shame there. So the checkup happened. It was a bit of an intense checkup, and man, I reckon Matthew Dench will either be furious or laughing at that. It's a real shame to see, but it's all much of a muchness in the end. We're back to racing, and they've got to focus on getting that car repaired, getting back out there, and working their way forward once more. Peasnick is on a blinder right now. The gap has already gone up past 1 second. The Evolution Racing Team Porsche looking like the class of the field right now. Safety car is back out.
They breed safety cars. What is this
Sam Muir
for?
Sam Muir in the 1.9 purple Mercedes has stopped. And that looks like it's at the... where is that? That's at the exit of turn 1, it looks like.
Final?
No, it's the final corner. It's Murray's.
Yeah.
The National Motor Racing Museum sign illuminated just in time. So what on earth has gone on for the 1.9 purple Mercedes?
It's going to have to be off the race restart, surely. And then you've got the long tail of the field in the GT4s here. Clearly some shenanigans have gone on. Looking at the replay...
Oh, this is not good.
There's already a big check up in front of him there. They've nearly come to a stop at the tail.
Muir, yeah, he got massive damage off the back of it. Looks like the Lame Sheep Racing BMW, and that car could not continue, unfortunately.
Which is it's disappointing. I actually know a couple of the drivers from this 1.9 GT4 program, which is Jordan Malcolm and Sam Muir. They've been putting a lot of work into the GT4s over about the last sort of 12 months. It's really paid off for them. In terms of their pace, in terms of their consistency, they've got the ability to win championships in this car. But yeah, that's frustrating for them. Jordan Malcolm's a go-karter in real life, so he's out there punching away and doing some sort of stuff. And then Sam Muir's just been around for just so damn long, and he's been so successful for so long. So this is frustrating for these guys and for the 1.9 outfit.
Almost need to be looking further up the road than this.
Oh yeah, way further up the road. Because there was a massive checkup. It looked like Timothy Harris and Matt Bailey, GT3 and GT4, checking up into Murray's. That just caused a traffic jam for everyone behind. It looked like the Trans-Tasman Racing McLaren was one of the cars involved. And then at the very end of that, well, the 1.9 Mercedes just absolutely clobbered the rear of the Lame Sheep BMW.
Thumbs up, boys. Can get on the cans now.
Man.
Who said we stopped from overnight?
Yeah, who's saying? Oh, man. Well, then, that's the avoiding action from Jake Burton. I think that car has picked up a bit of damage, but the Lame Sheep BMW had come to a complete stop, and I don't think anyone behind was really prepared for that.
the cars nearly stopped in front of him as well. It's, as always, there's a ripple effect. There's a subtle check-up, and then it becomes a bigger check-up as it goes, a couple of cars further down the wave until someone almost has to come to a complete stop there, and cars behind it ready to get going. This is from Muir's perspective, but okay, you've got...
They were all accelerating. I don't think they anticipated that people were still going slow up front, and oh man, so probably regretting the decision to go right instead of left when he was approaching that incident.
I still don't feel any wiser about what actually happened there, to be honest with you.
Yeah,
there wasn't
it
any
was really weird.
Mixed with GT4s that caused GT3s to check up more than they expected or anything, was there?
I think that might have been a factor. I think it's just, very little minor events ballooning into big ones. This is on board with the lame sheep BMW, and you see him accelerating up, but then getting on the brakes here. Yeah, big check up there behind, and he gets bumped. Oh dear. Yeah, I mean, I think we're still trying to figure out exactly what caused all that kerfuffle at the final corner.
Oh my word, it's even worse. So this there was a I love bringing this out, and endurance races are a really good opportunity to bring this out. I love traffic dynamics, particularly traffic dynamics and traffic jams, and how to remove traffic jams. So this is a little bit of text and context for everyone at home has obviously got a race car, and they're absolutely out there hammering laps, and that's all well and good. But the biggest thing is when we actually get out on the road as human beings and we get into the biggest cities. Within traffic jams and the science of traffic jams, what they did was they set a big circle out in a field to simulate, in air quotes, a traffic jam. What they found was they tried to, basically the experiment they ran was they ran every single car and they said, yep, you've got to hold 50 kilometers an hour. That's your only goal as you're going around in this circle. Now, because of the offset and the degrees of accuracy in everyone's speedometers, what actually happened was this ripple effect in a circle of cars all going the same speed. The cars were catching each other, slowing down, so you kept getting this accordion effect, even in a straight line of cars, all maintaining a regular city speed limit. How do we prevent that? How do we sort of deal with that? If you're ever encountering a traffic jam, one of the biggest things that you can possibly do is keep rolling at every single opportunity you can. Now, if that means you're doing 5 kilometers an hour for an extended period of time, what will happen is if 3 cars do that, the traffic jam will break. That's all it takes, is 3 cars to actually do that. How do we then apply that logic to a sim racing standpoint? Well, when you see a checkup, that means you brake nice and early. You start as soon as you see any hesitation in a safety car queue or a controlled speed queue like this, brake nice and early, reduce your speed, and the key factor is to reduce it gradually. Stop-start kind of motions, as we see quite heavily in inner city style situations, that's what causes your traffic jams. When you come to a full stop, as soon as one car does it, multiple cars do it. If a couple cars keep rolling, but they keep rolling at a gradual speed, that traffic jam will naturally disperse. So what it's all about is whenever you're speeding up and slowing down in a safety car queue, you do it gradually. You don't automatically, I've got to catch the car ahead, I've got to catch the car ahead, I've got to catch the car ahead. Don't even think that. Just nice and smoothly accelerate back through. That'll prevent these sorts of experiences. In this case, obviously everyone's trying to get back to racing. That's what it's all about. Checkups are going to happen naturally. A little bit more space, a little bit more head squirted on. And remember, we're here for hour number 12. We're not here for hour number 2.
Yeah, exactly. And I think another factor to consider is the rise over the run between the Chase and Murray's. There were cars getting back up to racing speed coming out of the Chase that probably weren't aware of cars still going slow in Murray's, and so they just got the cue too late that there were cars slowing, and that's where spotters become part of the equation, David. You got to have someone in your ear telling you what's going on ahead of you around a track like this.
I don't know how much of a heads up can actually help you in some of these situations. I mean, the more knowledge, the better. There's obviously things you can't see from the driver's seat. Some of it can maybe be solved with Scott Rankin's techniques.
So I've just gone back to the moments just before the accident. What actually happened was that the leader had actually gone when that one happened. So, but of course we've got a 50 car chain. So the guys at the back haven't even gotten to the final corner yet, and they've already gone. Whether or not that was because there was a little bit of a gap in between the GT4 field, I've got cars that are doing less than 60 kilometers an hour in this queue, and I've got one car doing 145 kilometers an hour. That was always going to happen in that circumstance.
Book 'em.
Yep. Let's get the radar out. Where's the Mount Panorama police force? Because I know they're always out here and monitoring this circuit. So
They actually do love to come out here on a non-race day and see who's enjoying Conrod Straight a little bit too much, often to some humorous results, I suppose.
Yeah, this may be a racetrack some days of the year, but it's a public road for the rest of the year. So 60-kilometer-an-hour speed limit is enforced around Mount Panorama when racing is not happening. We are starting to get into the dawn now, guys. We saw that beautiful panning shot across the pits. The sun is coming up. So we're going to see this track start to rise in temperature very shortly. It still remains at 24 degrees Celsius, but keep an eye out for car behavior changing, for drivers to have to change up their driving style a little bit as the UV starts to hit the racetrack.
we're going to be going back green flag racing this time around. There's going to be a couple more cars that have opted for that pit stop under that most recent safety car as well. This will be a really, really good opportunity for particularly the DBM cars to actually sit back and think about how they're going to go about it. Did quickly question Dan on Dan Yeaman, who we saw on camera just before the resumption of that safety car period as well. And he said, look, recovery take 2 begins now, I guess.
Yeah.
So, such is life.
Such as sim racing, such as motorsport in general.
I'm looking at how muddled the tail of this field has become through all of this, because you've got first and second in GT4, Eclipse Sim Sports and LP Racing, but then immediately behind them a GT3 of WK&P Sim Sports, Blake Warboys. Then you've got third and fourth in GT4. You've got Rogue Sim Sports GT3 here. Hey, that says Rouge, but JRT says Rogue. One of them's gone Rogue. Then you've got 3 GT4s here of HTS Racing Yellow, Full Send Motorsports, Locked On Racing. And then you've got one of the quickest GT3s, I believe still holder of the fastest lap of the race, WSR Esports Butt Kicker, still with Daniel Ferguson. We know Alex Boyd also so quick in qualifying, soon to join that car at some point. Also Australia and JTIT Race on Oz as GT4s, and then Alpha Venturi Racing and Blackout OPR. Again, some quick GT3s behind those GT4s. So it kind of goes, you know, alternating layers of GT3 and GT4 through the tail of the field.
Yeah, it's going to be a bit confusing on the timing and seeing positions swapping as we get this race started again. Single file behind John Peasnick. Fingers crossed, everybody. Touch whatever wood is closest to you and hope that this restart is clean and we don't see yet another safety car to begin this race once more. We're not even an hour in, not even 45 minutes into, well, not even 50 minutes, sorry, into the race, and we've already had 2 safety car periods, so here's hoping.
So interesting little bit of insurance minds for you guys as well. What causes safety cars? We know safety cars breed more safety cars. Why? Car-to-car interactions. You know, insurance companies sit there and they go, a certain number of car-to-car interactions breeds a crash. So more car-to-car interactions, which we're about to see, could breed another.
Certainly could. Here we go then, down to Murray's corner. The green flag will fly momentarily and John Peasnick will be focusing once more on getting the best start he can. Accelerates just before Murray's, gets up to speed, and we are away again. Back to green flag racing in the Oceanic Sim Racing Bathurst 12-hour. Clean start from the front of the field as the rest of them make their way through Murray's, and I'm seeing a lot more space being given this time around. There is a check up at the very back I'm seeing. Marino Morella in the Alpha Venturi Porsche had to make his way around James Golding in the Blackout OPR entry, but it looks like the field has made their way through cleanly.
It's So the GT3 is doing all this work now. The ones that are in the tail of the field trying to work their way through the GT4s. It's a two-wide traffic jam in front of what could be blackout OPR here. Just behind where WSR have been able to make a bit of progress. And indeed, they are going to have to shoot the middle here, three wide, trying to pass a bunch of GT4s before they work their way up into Griffin's Bend.
Well, James Golding at the wheel of the Porsche now, and he made short work of getting by those GT4s, but we see another Porsche down in 27th position in class, and we see a Ferrari there as well, trying to make their way past across the top of the mountain. The Alfa Venturi entry manages to dispatch them by the time they get to Silman Park. And now we just hope that this pack of GT4s can make their way through across the top of the mountain cleanly. A little bit slow for the Porsche Cayman GT4 there. That's the full send car. And I'll correct myself from earlier. There is not one Porsche Cayman in the field, but two. And one of them is very offline there, coming down through the S's, making way for what looks like a GT3. Meanwhile, up the front of the field, John Piesnik already out to 9/10 of a second in the lead. It's still on for second between Vermillion and Whipperman, but Cameron Dance in the Orbit DBM Ferrari off at the chase. Looked like a bit of contact there.
One of the drivers we can have a look at as well is not especially well pleased with it. Bit of contact to the rear off the exit of the chase there as well in the traction zone. Potentially as John Piesnik at the lead of the race goes and takes the fastest lap of the race with all of that clean air. He's burnt down a bit of fuel. He's gaining speed.
He is indeed. It looked like the Orbit DBM car made contact with Dylan McAuliffe in the Rapid Team Rennsport Ferrari. That was a move that Cameron Dance attempted at the chase that ultimately went awry. And looks like there's further dramas just about for the Rapid Team Rennsport Ferrari. Almost had an issue with Lachlan Capel in the ERT 262. Here's what happened. Cameron Dance gets up the inside of McAuliffe, just clobbers the curb, and, well, I would argue that he took himself out there. There really wasn't anywhere for McAuliffe to go.
Yeah, I'd say that's probably a fair enough assessment of that one. I mean, you know, again, we're talking about a lot of these incidents, a lot of these dramas don't really matter. I don't mind. Look, if you're gonna make those mistakes, make them now. Learn your lessons now, because when we get to the back end of this race, well, if it happens in the final 2 hours, you maybe got one safety car to really play yourself back into it. But at the moment, you know there's probably going to be a good 5 or 6. So for the guys, particularly the DBM guys at the moment, yeah, they've had their dramas early on, but it is early on, and they've got time to recover from all of their dramas, and they can settle themselves back into this race, and they'll do so appropriately.
Leader GT4 is able to find some rhythm here. Got a couple of GT3 cars behind Kobe Williams before you get to second in class LP Racing and third in class Jake Burton in the Trans-Tasman Racing car. So this is a solid as you're going to get for a GT4 lead.
Yeah, certainly. Kobe Williams is on a blinder right now, isn't he? Got to contend with Marino Morella, but that pass is going to go by without much fuss. Meanwhile, up at the chase, some more passing being made, and this is a bit further down the field. Cameron Dance trying to make a recovery, just made his way past the FPS Evolve driving entry with Jim Stoddart at the wheel of the number 10 Audi. Cameron Dance is a quick driver, and we've certainly seen him on some magnificent races in the past, so we'll see if he can recover that car up to a reasonable position. Over the top of Mountain Straight, we come further towards the front. This is the battle in the middle of the top 10. Fourth place on back. We've got Luke Turner in the Pulsar Chuka Toyota at the front of this train. We're looking at the back of the XCM 100 entry with Jason Bence at the wheel. Damon Woods still trying to make up further positions for the Eclipse Sim Sports entry that could have started on pole position. Up to 6th place, though. They are putting on a pretty good masterclass on how to work your way up through a field.
How good is this from Damon Woods as well? He's one of the drivers that's really come to mind in sort of the last 6, 8, 12 months for me that I've sort of started becoming more and more aware of. TCRs, he just dominates in those things. He is so quick. It is so difficult to even come close or even try and match him in the TCRs. Well, now it's GT3 action, and look at the confidence he's displaying at the moment. the benefit for a driver with this sort of pace and this sort of level is they can think about things. If there's a move that they can go through on, but it's maybe a little bit risky, they can back out of it. They don't really have to press on because they've got that pace to rely back on. And I think this is another move you're going to see get done at the end of this straight.
Yeah, look in the slipstream. Here we go. Damon Woods makes the move on Jason Benson to the chase, and it looks like Benson's going to lift out of that one. He realizes the context, and through into 5th place goes Eclipse Sim Sports. So, only a few more positions to go, and they'll be trying to race for the lead.
Sun's still rising around the track, yet to hit the surface, but an increasing glow around the place. Very pleasing glow off to the east there. Kiesnick continues to ramp up the pace as visibility improves and fuel load burns down for the 12 cars out front that haven't stopped yet in GT3. Lachlan Capel, 13th in GT3, highest running car that put new tyres and a bit of extra fuel in.
Maybe still bringing those tyres up to temperature and pressure as well.
They're 11 laps old, man.
Well, I mean, that's if he did. Well, we're sitting here going, did he take tyres that first time? He might have actually taken tyres. He might not have. Was the other? Well, I mean, with the track temperature as well, probably.
He did because the stop time was 25 seconds. Cars that only took fuel have stop times of 14 seconds, 18 seconds.
Yeah, there you go. So numbers being run. Debate for you guys. The new track that's getting built up and around Mount Panorama. Thoughts on that one?
I think it's good for motorcycle racing, because bikes haven't been allowed to run at the mountain for a number of years now. So I think if you're a two-wheeled racer, the new track is a very good thing. But I think they'd be fools to try and replace Mount Panorama for four-wheeled racing.
I think they should build it somewhere else, like Orange or something. Nothing good comes from living in the shadow of this place, because it's never going to be a Mount Panorama that we run on when we're not running on this Mount Panorama. So it'll never be this Mount Panorama circuit, and it might even take away some of the shine of what makes this Mount Panorama circuit special.
Yeah. It's just an interesting point for debate, though. But I mean, they're attempting to bring something more to it.
Or Dubbo. Maybe they could build it in Dubbo.
I was going to say Griffith. Yeah, come build me a racetrack.
Dunedoo? Mudgee? West Wyalong? We're just throwing out ideas here. How about West Wyalong?
Simon Mazoma would be keen for one at Wagga Wagga. So.
Certainly be interesting to see there. I mean, that's the thing, as that's another position made up for the WSR Esports Audi. They've made their way past Jim Stoddart now. Good stuff as that car makes its way up the field. I'm always interested hearing these debates from people who live over east, because obviously there's a lot more people on the eastern side of Australia. I'm in Perth, the most isolated capital city in the world. We're closer to Bali and Jakarta than we are to Melbourne. And
it shows, we know.
Yeah, of course. So our options for racetracks are very limited. We've got Wanneroo, we've got Collie, we've got a potential new track being built down in Keysbrook, but that's about it.
Mopeds up and down Cooter.
You've got support, by the way, David Haynes. Someone just dropped in chat and said, yes, let's have a racetrack in Orange. So that we might have to push that to state government.
Resurrect New Blast, maybe? Yeah. The most of the roads are still there.
What would they call it if they made a new one, Reese?
This is new with a G, Jay Kennedy said. So yeah, New Blast. Oh god.
Newer Blast?
Newer Blast. Yes. Yeah, I like that. Newer Blast.
Too Blast, Too Furious?
Yes. Oh god. Fantastic. Yeah.
Well, funny track names, by the way. The home motocross track where I grew up and raced as a kid was named Nudwalk Park. It was literally cow dung spelt backwards.
Oh, that's great. Oh, have a look at this. XCM 100 looking for a move here. This is on the 9.5 SimSport Ferrari. Dylan O'Shea not having the best of runs out of the chase.
And meanwhile, the other Audis are also making a bit of progress here because Damon Woods in the Eclipse Sim Sport car got past Pulse Echuca Toyota's Ferrari Luke Turner. And again, we're seeing up front here a lot of the drivers who go, no, that's not my battle yet. I don't know if anyone's having those kind of thoughts down in 25th place, but inside of the top 10, there's definitely some long-term thinking happening.
Yeah, looks like it. Well, now there's a tiny bit of clear air for the Eclipse Sim Sports Audi. And he'll be working his way up to the top 3 very shortly, I'd imagine. The top 3 are spaced out pretty equally right now. It looks like you were talking about long-term thinking, David. I think John Peacenik is definitely in that mindset because he hasn't really extended the gap. He's not going for qualifying laps here. He's actually leaving the gap steady at about a second to Zach Rattray-White. So I think ERT just taking that long game mindset through in these first hours of the race as down into the S's we come for this very intense battle. The number 65 Vermilion Motorsports car, Rob Carmichael at the wheels, got Blake Neck for company as well as Lachlan Capel, and these are battles just outside the top 10. Looking pretty intense.
And again, Capel and this car's in a very interesting strategy position where possibly only 10 to 15 minutes away from the race leaders needing to pit, and in fact almost everyone in front of Lachlan Capel needing to pit, but they will run a bit longer, potentially on some fresher tyres here as well. Ferrari versus Ferrari battle inside of the top 5 on the brakes down into the chase.
Dylan O'Shea moves 9-5 into the top 5. Luke Turner, I think, just minding his own business here. He's got his own race to run. He'll let others be aggressive around him, and they'll
in the fence.
Hopefully...
The number 16's had a drama, I think.
Oh dear. Okay. Yeah, that's one of the Mercedes GT4s there. The Race on Oz number 16. And that looks like a very sad front bumper on that Mercedes. Looks like a problem in Hell Corner.
How have they made the grille even bigger?
Yeah, I know. Amazing. Oh, and it's friendly fire too. The leaders are coming up on him. He's going to have to move out of the way there. Let's see what happened. Race on Oz versus Race on Oz. Oh, yeah, he's done it himself. Okay, not friendly fire. Just lost it coming out of Hell Corner, and the other car had nowhere to go.
One of those cases sometimes where the car in front, gets a little bit of a slide on, gets no traction, and then gets drilled by the car behind them. So the job was kind of finished by their teammate, but definitely started by getting the curb wrong. The GT4s bounce a little more. They don't settle over the curbs quite as nicely, and then, of course, don't have as much downforce either.
Particularly the older BMW is quite... I know that they struggle to actually get that car planted, particularly coming down through the dipper and the S's. There was a lot of tinkering from that SLM Motorsports car last year sometime. Running in another league that was running at Bathurst, had one of its races at Bathurst. They had a lot of problems keeping the rear tyres underneath them as the stint went on. So just the suspension and just actually pressing the tyre to the ground was an issue for that car. But yeah, older style suspension, that'll do it.
This is some good racing here for 13th in GT4. Greg Patrick having to make way for the other Race on Oz car that has a dent in the front bumper now, thanks to the team car spinning ahead. That was a nice move coming into the chase. Patrick, I think another one of the drivers that's not focusing on aggression so much as just surviving in the early stages. Meanwhile, Blake Neck has got Lachlan Capel for company here, and you see him moving around behind. We got Dylan McAuliffe in there as well in the Ferrari. It is Bratwurst in a ciabatta roll, I think, is what you would say for that battle. They've got GT4 traffic as well. The Lame Sheep Racing BMW immediately moves out of the way, and you see that they're still carrying some damage from their earlier incident under the second restart. Under the first restart, sorry. Lachlan Capel already involved in some big incidents down at the chase, and that ERT Mercedes is looking to put that far behind them and work their way up.
interesting to note as well, that car looks brand spanking new at the moment. I wonder whether or not they may have been forced to take their fast repair earlier on, which means they've got nothing in the tank. Anything happens later on in the race, they're a little bit whole. There's a number of cars up and down the field that obviously had to do that already. The McLaren obviously is one of those. So, you know, just things to keep in the back of your mind is in a 12-hour race where you do have a fast repair up your sleeve, hanging on to it. There's some cars up and down the field that have been taking repairs with these safety car periods and getting themselves back in the race, but there's other cars that just have not had a choice. They either go a lap down or they take a fast repair, and I think Cape might be one of those.
You think the 23 took one as well?
Potentially. Yeah, potentially.
Yeah, I think that's very likely. Yeah, for those who are curious, you get one fast repair each in this race, so make sure that you use it at an opportune time. Meanwhile, in GT4, Eclipse Sim Sports is running away with it. This is the battle for second on the bottom of the screen. Luis Paulo Gallon versus Jake Burton. It's a battle that we saw in qualifying yesterday, David, and it's continued into the race, but not quite for the lead. Kobe Williams has been putting down some fantastic times, still running 0.2 faster than both of these guys on screen right now.
Yeah, exactly, and that track's still cold, whereas in qualifying on a very, very hot track, the Aston Martin didn't look like it quite had the match for these two cars, so you want to see it out if you're LP Racing or Trans-Tasman Racing. And you can see where the GT3s are on the top of screen and where the GT4s are bottom of screen. You've got race leader outright John Peasnick starting to lap a little bit more GT4 traffic now we're off of this restart, and it's getting a little hectic.
Oh, it is. Oh, that is some very close quarters there, isn't it? GT4s, two of them in fact, having to make way there. Greg Patrick and Gene Newell, they've been involved with each other for a few laps now, and looks like the GT3s are all past them. Through all of that, Blake Nex still keeping Lachlan Capel behind.
One of the big factors as well, I was just looking at the sector times from Jake Burton. He just went purple from the exit of the cutting all the way to Skyline, so he's got some pace on board that car.
So we're cutting away here because look at the overall lead. John Peasnick has probably not had the best of laps here, potentially dealing with some GT4 traffic. The gap for the lead has come down to half a second. So let's see if Vermilion Motorsports and Eclipse Sim Sports now, who have made their way into the top three, will be able to make a mark on that. Coming down into the chase, should be short work of the BMW for second place running, and then there's more GT4 traffic. So here we go. This is the defining factor. Who is best at traffic management among the top three?
Where some watching on have got some money on that Eclipse Sim Sports car getting its way to the lead from 15th on the grid within this stint as well. So they'll be eagerly watching how close that car's gotten to the race lead, and also the pressure that's on Evolution Racing Team's John Peasnick, who's looked unflappable to this point.
Luke Turner, Pulsar Chuka Toyota, is stuck just before the cone. I don't know whether or not they can get this car fired. There's been no debate about it on the in-race radio, so this will tell you how it ended up here.
Okay.
It's just requested a tire. It's just now requested a tire.
Oh, God. Oh, God. All right. One of the veteran gaming cars getting involved there, and the rear wheel is disconnected for Pulsar Chuka Toyota. That is massive drama for that Ferrari, and you see it struggling to get going in the gravel trap. Looked like they were trying to make their way around the XCM 100 Audi at the same time as they were coming up on the veteran gaming GT4.
His first, second, and third. Second gets balked a little bit by the GT4 traffic. Damon Woods in the Eclipse Sim Sport Audi is going to be all over the Ferrari across the top of the hill. Peasnick's managed to get about 1 second back here in his race lead, but if we go safety car, I expect all of these drivers are going to want to pit. It's round about their time.
Well, the Pulsar Chuka Toyota car is back in the lane now, so I think they've been granted permission from race control to do that. If they haven't, then there's going to be a big penalty coming their way, but we stay green.
Yeah, can confirm. Race control jumped on the mic, so they called for the tow. They did request it. There was another car that dived down through the pit lane entry at the same time. They tried to get some drive back in that car, couldn't quite get it, and it was because they were facing uphill. Race control deemed it a safe location, wasn't really impacting anyone, let them tow from that position. So that was all above board, no issues there.
Righto. Well, here we go. Almost on for second here. Eclipse Sim Sports has been charging their way through this field. I tell you what, despite the qualifying or shootout infringement yesterday,
More dramas at the chase.
More dramas at the chase indeed. Looks like Vermilion Motorsports, Middlefinger Racing, both losing spots. So we'll get another view of that shortly. Blake Warboys, meanwhile, in the WKNP Mercedes, making a move for 20th place. That's the Code 9 Esports Ferrari of Brandon Smith. Looks like the drama at the chase has cleared. They are all good to keep racing through there.
You can see the tracks through the gravel down here as well. Both cars managing to avoid the wall. A little bit of GT4 traffic causing some checkups here. You've got too wide. The cars touch going through there.
Oh, no. Oh, that could have gone any way. Oh, nearly contact in the gravel trap as well, but they managed to recover.
Just keep your eyes on this for just a few moments. Keep your eyes on Rob Carmichael. Look what he's doing here. He's letting a number of cars go, letting a number of cars go.
Yep,
that one's on me. No slowdown. This was a redress.
Yeah, okay.
But he would have also had a slowdown.
Yeah, we'll kill two birds with one stone, I suppose. So, looks like the leaders have cleared that GT4 traffic now, and they can get back up to racing speed. The next GT4 is Rory Wilson in the Lame Sheep BMW, which has taken some repairs and looks like a driver change as well. Rory Wilson now in that car, taking over from Harrison Arendt. So they'll come up on him on Conrod Straight, probably more towards the chase. But this is really intriguing, this lead battle now. We have Damon Woods charging his way forward. We've got Zach Rattray White trying to hold on to second place. John Peasnick probably backing off a little bit, not quite showing his true pace right now in the lead of this race as the sun finally rises.
Update
and
on
almost 5 seconds from these guys to fourth place as well.
Update on the number 46 car as well, the Cool Drive Racing 46. They're in the lane at the moment, so something's happened to them. They've actually got a meatball flag as well, so they've got damage to repair. Haven't checked the fast repair, they're going to tick that one off manually.
Righto. Pulsar Toyota, as you can see, is back out on track as well. The tow has been taken, and I think a fast repair too. So that is Luke Turner back in the car once more. And it's going to be recovery from here on out. Battle for fourth place just up ahead of them. Luke Bergens has lost a lot of time through that sequence of GT4 traffic, and it means Dylan O'Shea is looking at a potential fourth place for 9.5 Sim Sports. It's a car that we'll probably be looking at further on into this race if all goes well. The 9.5 crew are a quick bunch, and they are certainly on the outside looking in right now, but who knows where we're going to be in a couple of hours' time. So here's what happened to the number 46. This is where the mechanical black flag was shown for them, into the elbow, and it is... Oh, okay, righto. Well, that explains it. The front suspension absolutely destroyed. Almost took the Dick Johnson line.
Definitely took the Mikkel Kona line through that one and got the nose way up through the sky, which in a Mercedes, I believe, is the Mark Webber line. So a lot of comparisons to be made, but that wall on the exit Forest Elbow, it's right there. And a mistake that you probably shouldn't make at this point in the race, under quite a lot of pressure as it was. 7th place now is Lachlan Capel, the Evolution Racing Team car, carrying 10 more laps of fuel than everyone in front of him, like these leaders. When they need to pit shortly, that car will cycle through at least temporarily to the lead of the race. Traffic for your outright leaders, though.
Yep, and that's a change for second there. Vermilion Motorsports is back to third. And Damon Woods... Oh, yeah, John Peasnick boxed in by 2 Mercedes GT4s. Jared Knight and Andrew Gilliam, the Altus Australia Mercedes, has backed up the top 3 once more, and we could see a change for the lead by the end of this lap if all goes well for Damon Woods.
He's not going to get quite the perfect exit out of turn number 1, though, but he has worked his way into second, got past Zach Rattray White, so now he is next in line for that throne that John Peasnick holds at the moment.
And guess who the next GT4s are they're going to come up on? The battle for second. Luis Paulo Gallon and Jake Burton. They've just exited Griffin's Bend, and there's another problem for a GT3. That's the Team Jinx Shifters 52, Henry King. Obviously having a major off at the chase, but it doesn't look like he's taken damage from that, so play on.
The chase or pit entry?
It was the chase.
The only yellow headlighted Ferrari out there. Come in some grief.
Yeah, the only yellow lighted GT3 in general, I think. Let's see what happened to him. So this was coming out of Forest Elbow. And these guys were racing down just outside the top 20. They were in the middle of a big train of cars. One of the Veteran Gaming Australia Mercedes there. Drop bear car behind in the GT3 class. What happened to them here? Oh, just too much curb at the chase. The car got majorly unsettled, but good on Henry King, got straight on the brakes and was able to keep it out of the wall.
How happy do you think they are that the gravel dynamics have been updated?
Yeah.
I reckon they would have made the fence actually if that was not there.
Oh, the Whipperman Racing Porsche. That was 4th place. I noticed that Dylan O'Shea had made the move for 4th. I thought that was a pass, but apparently there's been a big issue for Luke Bergens on the exit of the elbow.
Car's still under power, but a really, really difficult place to get it turned around. The walls are so close there near Mr. Sun Energy One's house.
Oh dear. Well, he's going to have to make a 6-point turn, I think, to get that worked out.
I was just looking at this train as well. There was a huge train coming down through Skyline at the moment, so he's done there was one hole and he found it to get back across the track.
Well, there we go then. Back up to speed for Luke Bergens, but down into 25th place in GT3. That's a real shame for one of the fastest cars out there. What happened to him? It wasn't a pass from the 9.5 car. It was involvement with the GT4. Too tight on the exit of the elbow. And oh, goodness, went straight across the track in front of the oncoming cars. That could have been a lot worse than it ended up being. We should turn our attention back to the lead, though, because Damon Woods has caught up to John Peasnick right on the back of him across the top of the mountain.
You've got what was the fastest car in qualifying, disqualified from the shootout, starting 15th on the grid through a chaotic opening stint of the OSR Bathurst 12 hours, working its way to second, right at the rear bumper of the leader as they catch their teammates who are leading GT4.
Here we go. This is fantastic stuff here. Will Kobe Williams help out Damon Woods? Looks like he's not going to have an opportunity. They are on Conrod Straight now. There will be an opportunity for a slipstream, though. A little bit of extra speed, potentially, for Damon Woods. Little friendly headlight flash between the team cars. And here we go into the chase. A bit far back for an out-braking move, but you see how strong the slipstream is. Woods does peek out just a little bit. Lets John Peasnick know that he's still there. This is pretty... This is pretty intense.
Well, guess what? They've probably got about a quarter of a track to the next GT4 car, so there's a fair bit of head-to-head racing. Probably about the next 5 to 6 laps, you're gonna get these guys to go head-to-head, and they're gonna have to pit before that's out.
Oh boy. Well, further battles just outside the top 10. It's the Middle Finger Racing number 3 here, and XCM 100 Jason Bentz is losing time out there. I think we'll have to stay on the replay to see what happened to him. This is the number 64 Pulsachuca Toyota entry. This was their view of the Whipperman Porsche spinning in front of them. Good avoiding action there. Now, what happened to XCM 100? Looks like an issue at the exit of Murray's Corner. He was stopped on the racing line, and unfortunately, it looks like Bentz just lost this by himself.
Looking to put a lap on, gets given the racing line, and gets in too hot.
Yeah, once again, the Pulsachuca Ferrari has to immediately take some avoiding action.
Being the first to find a body, okay, if it happens once, but if you're the second or third time calling them in, they start to get suspicious.
Yeah, I think that Positive Racing and Toyota. Sorry,
I'm not actually pointing the finger there. They've just been around sort of the top 10, and that's where some of the drama's been happening amongst the GT3s.
Can I just say, have they done turning the lights back on yet? Have they been over to the guns and destroyed some of the asteroids? Time for a check-in, maybe.
Yeah.
You bossed me.
Among Us references.
Oh God. Okay. Right. We're still in 2020 mode in some areas. Oh dear, that's big drama at the cutting, and this has to be a safety car. They have to make a safety car out of this. It's a traffic jam at the cutting. The track is completely blocked. Oh no!
All the cars look like they've got power.
The leaders are in the pits.
Well, I think the leaders are actually out of fuel. I don't think this is because they think that there's going to be a safety car. I think that there is going to be them being out of fuel. So this is just convenient
lane's
timing
open
for them.
Yeah, lane's open, but we still have many cars stopped on the inside of the cutting. Jim Stoddart has just enough time to get out of the way, and everyone will get going again. And this is live on the Pulse car going to the runoff area. I'm wondering if they got involved.
They were off at McPhillamy separately, so there was a lot going on, as well as leaders looking to pit. A couple of them stayed out.
Okay, so what on earth happened to Jim Stoddart? Looks like he just lost it by himself on the way into the cutting, and it was a very inconvenient place to come to a stop.
Those Audis, you get in too hot to some of these slow corners, and the rear looks like it lets go. We saw that for XCM. We're potentially going to see that again at their karting here, where there's still one car that looks like there might be only one car that's lost power and is stuck there.
All right, so Jim Stoddart in car number 10 gets on the brakes. Rear end goes light there, and around he goes.
There's still more cars. There's still more cars piling into this, by the way. This is still unfolding.
Yeah, it's. I mean, Jim Stoddart's managed to get going again, but he's not the only car that's been stopped there. Paul Warwick and the Fishy Motorsports 888, they started last of all in GT3. This might be another safety car, but they are right by one of the exits of the racetrack, so potentially race control would allow them to tow without bringing a safety car out.
That's
what about
not
the car that
race.
was stopped at the apex of the cutting, though?
It's
that one was going nowhere.
Yeah, it's the 1-9 car once again. So the two cars that were involved in this one, and you saw it, that Fishy Motorsports car. Oh, they've just got rolling. They've just got rolling.
And race control have only just called the safety car now. So race control not very quick off the mark there.
Well, it kept clearing itself, which was the problem, right? So.
Oh dear. Well, let's reset once more. Looks like they kept stalling when they were trying to take off here in the 1-9 Mercedes. So they came in on all of this. Oh, that's massive. Yeah, big hit. No wonder. But we'll keep watching because, I mean, we saw this from the other angle. There's more cars coming. And once again, I think this is a case of, I think the teams just need spotters telling them what's coming because there were so many cars piling into this at full racing speed.
Generally, the advice... So the Fishy car is the one at the second car, sorry, in the queue, the Audi backing across its nose at this point in time. Oh, jeez. So anyway, one of the key factors whenever I'm talking about at Bathurst, there's no point spotting what the driver's looking at because by the time he sees something, he's in it, right? So generally when you come to Bathurst, the advice I give out to most people, go about 3 or 4 cars down the road, maybe 5 seconds is generally my target time because by the time I can communicate that to the driver, he's got time to adjust, he's got time to slow down and avoid anything that's a problem. So yeah, you're 100% right. I think the teams have got a little bit more responsibility to talk about things here. And the difference between real-life racing and sim world racing, well, you wouldn't get a spotter to be able to tell you something like that. but there would be more yellow flags and be more marshals indicating where to go or what to do with those sorts of things. There'd be more displays on the dash. There'd be different bits and pieces. So sim racing has a different kind of element of that.
Let's get the vibe check from the wall. Dance is at attention. Daniel Stevens is, I think, communicating with his team. Isaac Edwards got a beverage.
Having a brew, it seems.
Who gave us a wave earlier? I think it was bottom right,
Gavin Barber.
Give us a wave again, Gav. And then, Mazomo. All right, he's watching what's going on. Dylan Mueller is checking if his shoelaces are tight. And, Christopher Blanchard clearly behind the wheel at the moment there at the safety car speeds.
Yeah, worth pointing out as well.
There's the wave.
There we go. There's the wave from Gavin Barber, who we haven't pointed out yet. Yeah, it's actually Gavin Barber's first endurance race. He's done plenty of long races in championships like the majors, but this OSR Bathurst 12-hour is actually the first endurance event that Gav Barber has ever taken part in, and the car is doing quite well right now, up into the 13th spot. A lot of gains being made with Mark Newton at the wheel of the number 3. Meanwhile, we did see Zach Rattray-White in the lead of the race. Remember that the top 3 of ERT 261 plus the Eclipse Sim Sports car, they pitted a lap before everyone else. Matthew Bowler has taken over the 262 Mercedes. They pitted on the same lap as John Peasnick and Damon Woods. But all of that with the safety car being called and drivers having to slow up at the cutting because of the big incident means that Zach Rattray-White for Vermilion Motorsports now in the lead of the OSR Bathurst 12-hour with Dylan O'Shea in second spot. Eclipse Sim Sports does have the effective race lead though, as we keep an eye on Greg Patrick in the Full Send Motorsports Porsche Cayman.
Race day breakfast, still 10 hours, 45 minutes of action ahead of you. What are you having, Reese? What are you having, Scott?
I haven't eaten yet, and I'm probably not going to eat until this first part of the broadcast is over. I've been surviving on coffee.
Well, I'm also going to get in my coffee order, but most importantly, 3 shortbread and creams.
Okay. So going Vicky's at breakfast, is that it?
Yeah,
or
well, the problem is you want to settle, right? So shortbread's really, really good at absorbing some of that stomach acid, just sort of settling the stomach. If you've got nerves, it sort of cuts the nerves down. If you have a big greasy breakfast like bacon and those sorts of things, I'd have that behind the comms desk. But if I was in a car, absolutely not. I'm a big nervous fretter. So the potential for me to vomit is definitely up there. Have a quick nervous vom somewhere out the back of the pits and then get back in the car.
I'm thinking eggs and ham in a roll. You got a little bit of everything. It's tasty.
Yeah.
It's going to give you just a little bit of carbs, long energy. Going to give you a bit of protein, bit of jump you up.
I hate eggs. Eggs make me feel real. My wife loves having eggs and bacon and that of a Saturday morning before cricket, and I'm again very, very nervous when I walk out to open the batting, and I hate eggs sitting in my. Oh, you're just giving me the heebie-jeebies thinking about it.
I do like a good slow scrambled egg for breakfast on some very well-browned toast. But I'll have to think about that later. Still, my kitchen's the next room over, but I don't think I have any opportunity to get myself a little bit of breakfast just yet. Having said all of that, my girlfriend wants to make the grinder sandwich from TikTok today, so we're going to be heading out and getting the stuff for that and making ourselves a social media lunch today. I'll make sure to sure to update you all on
no context
my
for
thought.
what that is, and just by name alone, I'm deeply concerned but slightly intrigued.
Well, look, okay, so this is probably going to be a Perth thing that those over East might not understand, but you guys know about the continental roll?
No.
I don't get out enough. Yeah. No.
Okay. Yeah. So the continental roll, I think, is a very specific sort of WA thing, and it's one of those specific WA things that you hear about, and you're like, okay, that sounds pretty normal. Why is it like a very special thing in WA? Basically, continental roll. You get like a baguette or a long roll, and you just stuff it with deli meats and antipasto, and it's actually very nice. I've had plenty of them. The grinder sandwich, I think, is similar. It's got like giardiniera, pepperoncini, all chopped up with ham and salami and whatever, and a giant piece of bread. You know, I mean, I don't understand why it's making the rounds on socials and it's so special, the grinder sandwich. But hey, you know, got to keep the missus happy.
I've had a similar variation of Turkish bread. My family's because there was me, myself, me, my father, and my brother all playing cricket, and then my mother was doing lunch and whatnot, come along to do the scoring for us on a Saturday when we were growing up as kids. So what we used to do was get a foot-long Turkish roll and then cut it into quarters, and basically everyone just we all just come and laid it down similar with meats, but it was more salads and a bit of antipasto and that sort of stuff, and that was just chop it up at the end. Perfect. There's lunch for everyone, and we only had to prepare one sandwich.
Regional food. We got pie floaters. Look like they might have parked their car as they're 34 laps down in the number 18. Now there are other regional food. Do you like a Fuick? Do you like an iced coffee?
Oh, well, I'm not too familiar with Farmers Union. Look, honestly, Brown's does a good carton iced coffee over here, and apparently it's not as sweet as the other iced coffees you can get around Australia. So if you don't like your super sweet milk drinks, apparently if you're in WA, that's the place to go for iced coffee in a carton.
Still never had a Nippy's. I'll have to get around to having a Nippy's. I don't mind a no added sugar dare, and they're available, you know, everywhere, even if they're not the best. I think that gets you going on a morning.
Well, Jay piping up in our text chat saying that Chico Roll was invented in Bendigo, then first sold in Wagga. We started off on breakfast foods, and we've moved all over now, I think, haven't we? The next safety car, I think dinner options are probably on the menu.
I think the Chico Roll is for if a dim sim sounds too exotic for you, right?
Well, isn't it just like 3 dim sims stacked together, basically?
Feels like it's you know, just enough pork and other meat in inverted commas for it to be like a meat roll, but the rest of it, there's a lot of other whatever going on there. That said, alongside some chips and something else, I think I'd still go for one.
Oh yeah. I mean, if I'm needing a quick feed at a servo, and they sell Chico rolls, I'm gonna pick one up.
Some cars getting unlapped here. Where is the GT4 leader? I imagine there's some GT4s that are going to get a go around here as well. And you're seeing the million McLaren to the right-hand side of the circuit making moves. So So what, does almost the whole GT4 field need to go around the safety car? Right. No, because they're ahead of they're not. Well, are they? So, I guess it's time to then. This is how the checkups happen. Sort of go through who's pitted, who's what, where now, because a bit of change behind the safety car. Obviously now Jake Burton leads GT4. Is it because the others in class have opted to stop and he hasn't, or do you have a quicker stop?
Well, think about it this way, is that we've had effectively this safety car was far enough into the stint length that it's normalised the field. Basically, there was no reason for any car to stay out there, unless you were looking for some haywired gambling strategy, but it's too early in the race for that. Have they short-filled it to get out and not be trapped behind the GT3 leader and everyone else hasn't? Because look at this, they've got a whole lap to the rest of the field at this point. Yep. Not a whole lap, but yeah, okay.
Yeah, I'm looking at the pit stop times.
Safety cars earlier had a bit more fuel on board. Shorter stop just now.
Yep.
Yeah, 42.4 seconds was the pit stop time for the Trans-Tasman car. 38.5 seconds stop for Altus Australia. Interesting. Very interesting here in the GT4 category. We've also had a driver change in the LP Racing Mercedes. Eric Jaeger has taken over from Luis Paulo Gallon. That car's back in 5th. And I don't know if it's my timing bugging out, but it's showing me that they spent 1 minute and 27 in the lane, but only half a second stopped.
Well, I'd say it's your timing bugging out. What that is a driver swap.
Yeah, righto.
Because remember, it resets the pit lane time on a lot of those things when there is a
Fair
driver
enough.
swap done. Yes, but they did have a 20-second longer stop time than most of the other cars. About the only other car that's done a really, really long stop in the GT4s is the 73 Mauler Racing. So what that extra 20 seconds I'm thinking is maybe some damage, some optional damage, and they're just gone, it's early enough in the race, let's knock this out because we'll get track position back a little bit later on. And there's a number of cars that be thinking that same thing.
Race control processing more wave arounds here, and I suspect it's going to be all of the GT4s that are in front of Jake Burton there eventually. Safety car keeping the GT3s to the left, and here come some of the GT4s around, which would make sense. Otherwise, how would Jake Burton end up 3 minutes ahead of everyone?
Yeah, exactly right. Well, this is going to be our coffee time. It's our first opportunity to head to a very quick commercial break here on SimSpeed TV under safety car at the OSR Bathurst 12 hour with 10.5 hours remaining. Stay with us.
Racing isn't easy, but experiencing it is. iRacing puts you in the driver's seat with the industry's leading sim racing game. Drive on laser scan replicas of the greatest racing circuits from around the world. Go head-to-head against other drivers chosen by skill-based matchmaking to ensure competitive racing at every level. Compete across all your favorite series. In officially licensed cars, engineered to deliver the most accurate driving experience possible. Join a race or host your own with players from across the globe. Race against the computer or in a league with friends. Feel the thrill behind the wheel. Visit iRacing.com.
And we return to live pictures here at the OSR Bathurst 12 hour. 10.5 hours left on the clock. The safety car is pulling away. We've worked out all the waiver rounds, and it is going to be Vermilion Motorsports leading us away at the call of the green flag. Dylan O'Shea in the 9.5 SimSport 951 is in second place, with Damon Woods in third in the Eclipse SimSports number 56 entry. We'll see whether or not they dispatch the top two by the end of the first racing lap. These guys have spent a long time under safety car, but now we get on to pacing once more. I'm Reese Gardner. Got David Haynes and Scott Rankin in the comms box. Jay Kennedy bringing you these live pictures on SimSpeed TV on YouTube, Facebook, Twitch, and Kick. Just a couple turns to go, and we're already getting up to speed. Zach Rattray White at the apex of the chase has begun, and getting some final heat into those tyres. Vermilion Motorsports is going to lead us away, David, as the green flag flies.
Yeah, I like this. It's some of the late leader starts and the late green flags that cause a bit of a checkup. Something like this can really help string them out a little bit, get us racing cleanly. And with the pit stops behind that safety car, it's let Vermilion Motorsport and 9.5 get to the lead of the race, because Eclipse and Evolution stopped a lap later than them, got maybe a little wrong-footed by the safety car timing. From up front, Eclipse, SimSports and Damon Wood have been put back to third place. But it's a nice lead that your GT4 leader has got. Everyone else has had to be waved around, so there's some GT3s between the GT4 leader and the next cars in class. Looking at them here.
Yeah, this is quite the pack, isn't it, Scott? With Caleb Hydes having taken over the Aston Martin of Eclipse SimSports. And this is going to be difficult coming up to the top of the mountain. Eric Yeager in the LP Racing Mercedes, meanwhile, fighting with Dylan Gray, who's going up the inside at Griffin's Bend. Dylan Gray certainly not afraid to go for a move.
Yeah, and that's bravery that's going to be, maybe not necessarily rewarded this early on in the race, but it's about setting yourself back in, build that time in the car as well. They're putting themselves in a really, really good racing position. Remember how far down that car was very, very early on. They took a pit stop at the wrong time under the first safety car and actually popped out behind the GT3 leader, and that meant that car went a lap down. So for them to have gone from all that far back, from being off the lead lap, now all the way back up into fifths, a few things have gone right for that car.
No change in the top three in GT3. Vermilion Motorsports still holding on, but we'll wait and see what the lap times are like. Who has got the best car under them? It's a Ferrari 1-2, Audi in third place if you're following the manufacturer battle. Meanwhile, John Peasnick making the move up into fourth. He's just passed Dylan McAuliffe at the chase, and Matthew Bowler, who's taken over the ERT 262 from Lachlan Capel, is looking to take advantage.
So, despite having that extra fuel in from pitting under some of the previous safety cars, we've seen them stop again in the ERT car.
MFR number 3 is off, and that car was running quite well around about the midfield, but now they're going to fall way down the order. Mark Newton going for a spin at Murray's corner. Not too sure what caused that. Actually, I've just seen it was contact with the other ERT Mercedes of Daniel Hall.
Onto the replay here. Big switcheroo from the cars in front. Goes for a gap there that they thought was going to stay open, but instead closed amongst the battle in front, and then had to watch a lot of the field go past. But it wasn't the restart lap, it was a lap later, so there would have been a gap before the GT4s for them to get going into, and that's what they've done.
So, the top three compressing as the battle is on for fourth on back. Easy does it as they make their way across the top of the mountain. John Peasnick, having stayed in the ERT 261, now has some clear air and he can try to catch up. I think he'll be hoping that the Vermilion and 9.5 cars hold the Eclipse SimSports Audi back and he can try and get a move forward. Yeah,
I think what we're seeing right now is that everyone's sort of being normalized. So this for me, this is reliably going to be the first stint where we actually get to sit down and everyone's on the same fuel strategy. Everyone's doing the same sort of thing. So right now, this is really, really important. Dylan O'Shea's going to have a crack here. Straight to the inside. Looks to pop out the other side. And Zach Rattray White led the race for a few laps. Well, it's now for Dylan O'Shea to lead.
And from first to third now as Damon Woods makes the move just before they get to Murray's Corner, up into second spot for Eclipse Sim Sports 5-6. Meanwhile, behind, there's plenty going on at the chase. Looks like the WKNP Mercedes having some issues there, having to let people go. Chris Blanchard has taken over that car from Blake Warboys, and it's wheel to wheel between James Golding and Luke Bergens and the two Porsches at the front of the pack.
Yeah, a big move from Whipperman there, but they didn't get the great exit, and that put them under pressure from Blackout OPR, who then couldn't quite make that move. And we settle in here with a group around these positions here, 21st, 22nd, 23rd. Ferocious for everyone, and the field is still quite jumbled with all the safety car interventions we've had, the different pit strategies that we've had now starting to converge when we got a safety car near enough to the top of the hour for everyone to go, oh, yeah, that's time.
It's almost time for the move to be made here. Meanwhile, Cameron Dance is just chilling. He's exited the
Pizza
Orbit
roll?
DBM car.
Bacon and cheese pizza roll, interesting breakfast choice. I just had a banana, so now I can feel high and mighty about my healthy choices. But you know what? Like you said, big day. That's that slow energy you're going to need.
Could be lunch. Remember, Cam's in New Zealand.
Yep.
It's currently just gone past midday, I think, for them.
1
Do
p.m.
you think, knowing Cam Dance, that this isn't basically still morning and breakfast for him?
Oh, maybe. Who knows? Cam works night shifts, Jay says, so it's probably dinner. Well, we shall see. Got some news from Race Control, meanwhile. Car number 6, that's the Trans-Tasman Racing McLaren, has got a drive-through penalty for contact with car 64 at turn 10 on lap 31. I think that might have been some safety car contact that we missed. No. Would have been just before the safety car.
GT4 leader, which is big.
Yeah, massive stuff. So Trans-Tasman Racing have just gotten the awful news there. They're in the lead by a long way. So I think a drive-through penalty won't hurt them too much, but it'll definitely put them outside the top 3.
I think there's more going on because the Trans-Tasman car just piped up and said, we actually haven't had any contact with anyone, so that could be a mistaken identity, which is possible. I mean, you've got 50 cars in here, and there are a number of cars with their numbers starting with 6, so... It was them? Okay, there we go.
It was them, apparently. Okay, we'll get it on the replay. Remember how we saw the number 64 in the grass at McPhillamy? Well, this is the reason why.
Yeah, that's a slam dunk.
Yeah, I mean, if you're on the outside there, you have to turn in. And I don't know, it felt to me like it was a bit of a narrow entry there for the number 64, but hey, Race Control have obviously made the decision.
Yeah, that's an interesting one. I mean, that's just that's your bog standard, I would say. You're right, it is a narrow entry, but at the same time, remember what we were talking about pre-show? Takes 2 to tango. What was on the cards there for the TTR car? Probably not a lot. There was not really a whole bunch that they were risking at that point in time. We're very, very early on in the race, and they've effectively basically just gone, we're going to burn another car's fast repair, although the 64's hasn't been in the gravel, so it's okay. So that was its fast repair at that point in time. So, I mean, I would say, and I'm sitting there and with the people that are in Race Control, they'd be looking at that going, what was the benefit of turning in a little bit there? What was the benefit of leaving a little bit more space? There was no benefit. It was high risk to turn in. Yes, it's high risk to make an overtaking move, but it takes 2 to tango. And they were saying that the number 6 car didn't apply a good racing logic at that point in time, which I'd say that's fair enough.
Yeah, well, there's obviously going to be a lot of debate over whether or not the penalty was warranted, but regardless, when that penalty is taken, that means Eclipse Sim Sports is going to be into the lead of the GT4 class. Caleb Hydes just made the move earlier in the lap on Rick Kuznetsov. Meanwhile, Dylan O'Shea 95 SimSport 951 is looking at the back of the Eclipse SimSports Audi at the very top of the field. The move has been made by Damon Woods, and now Eclipse SimSports are where they would argue they should have been from the very start.
Great look at that body clip there that's not present on road-going Ferrari 296s, but is present on the 296 GT3 for quick replacement of the whole rear end, the bumper, the rear wing, the whole shebang back there.
Indeed. Keep an eye out here on the Alpha Venturi Racing Porsche. Move being made. Overtaking, bit of too wide, the Ferrari making the move, and we've got the Whipperman Racing Porsche behind them, who, remember, was running, it's a top 5 car, that Whipperman Porsche, unfortunately, spinning out of the elbow after contact with the GT4, taking advantage of that and making the move, as the Trans-Tasman Racing number 6 has just come out of the pits, having served that drive-through penalty. They re-emerge in 4th in class, just behind the HTS Racing yellow car, which is doing quite well right now.
Your new leader, Caleb Hyde's all over the curb on the exit of Griffin's Bend there. He's now back in that race lead here, but still with some pretty close company from Altus Australia there.
Yeah, very close company indeed.
Identical engine, both of these GT4s, by the way, as they both have a 4-litre twin-turbocharged V8.
Nice stuff. And Aston Martin also used a lot of Mercedes components, I think, in the building of the road-going version of the Vantage. So plenty of similarities between these two cars. Of course, the big difference between the two of them, I think, is that the Aston runs the road car gear ratios, much like the M4 does. All the rest of them have racing gearboxes. Look at how close Caleb Hyde's got to the wall here. He's pushing incredibly hard. Almost took off the wing mirror there.
Almost took off the pedigree signage as he was attempting to get the dogs.
Yeah, certainly. Well, the pace is there for Eclipse SimSports, and they're holding on to, I'd say, a comfortable enough lead at the moment over Altus Australia. They got a very good squad, haven't they? Andrew Gilliam and now Rick Kuznetsov in that Mercedes. Speaking of Mercedes, ERT making their way up here. The 260 of Daniel Hall. He's got very close company in the XCM 100 car. Jackson Schaub has taken over from Jason Bentz. And we've also got Daniel Yeaman having jumped into the DBM Beyond Blue Ferrari just behind them in lucky 13th. So we've got plenty to talk about in this battle. There's a lot of drivers in a long train here, all trying to stake their claim for that coveted 11th position.
Coveted 11th position. I think for Dan Yeaman right now, he wants to get ahead of 13th, because I'm pretty sure that every single time that that Audi is, the Ferrari has gotten its way into 13th spot, that's where all of their dramas have sort of happened. The first one was from the outside of P2, but at the moment, I think whenever they've gotten back to 13th, dramas have unfolded basically at that point. So I don't think they won't be wanting to sit here very much longer. Was that some aggressive fuel saving going on there?
Well, they're in the middle of the slipstream, so you might as well lift off and just let the car coast into the braking zone. It'll help shorten your next pit stop and potentially work out very nicely in the stints to come. Oh,
whoa,
dear. We were talking
Alpha
about
Venturi Racing and one of the other Drop Bear Motorsport cars at the chase there. Ben Holiday dropping some spots.
He's had plenty of dramas so far in this race, hasn't he? Holiday, I think, was actually spun by the other Drop Bear car under the first safety car, unfortunately. So he gets back up to speed, but still, you don't want to see stuff like this happen at the chase. Wondering if there was side-by-side contact in the braking zone. The slipstream was with him, and it looks like he did go for the move. The Alpha Venturi car turned in, and around they went.
Yeah, that's one of those ones where I don't necessarily know what the Porsche could have done. Like, they've got to leave space, absolutely, but they left enough space. They were nearly on the outside of the track, they were nearly in the grass, and you got to pull that Ferrari up.
Yeah, that you do. Here's Jackson Schaub then, chasing down Daniel Hall. Over on his day too. It's very close competition in the GT3 class here. We've just gone past 7:26 a.m. in sim time. This race has been going on now for an hour and 45 minutes, as that's an interesting place to go up the inside. Daniel Hall has to make way, and on the power goes Jackson. But you know what? That slowed up the both of them. So this is going to give a big advantage to Yeaman and Bilson in the two Ferraris behind. Daniel Hall is coming back at him. It's a battle of the slipstreamers. Who has the best run into the chase? You're looking from the outside here on the way in, and look at that. Beautiful stuff from Dan Yeaman. He judged that situation perfectly. Now Daniel Hall has to deal with Riley Bilson. Bilson then has to deal with Sean McLaughlin in the HTS Racing green Mercedes. This is a whole train of cars that has to sort themselves out now.
Yeah, you get 11th and 12th side by side, and then it means everyone else behind closes in, and Daniel Yeaman's able to profit off of it.
I was just about to say cork in the bottle style moment, wasn't it? And Dan Hall's, you can see that he's trying to be a little bit circumspect. Oh, hang on, Schaub's gone wide at turn number 1. Yeaman's got an opportunity here. He's going to have a mega run up, and he's going to have the power. It's where does Schaub go? Does he cover this one? I was expecting him to cover it.
I was expecting it too.
That.
Yeah, because, like, you know, Griffin's Bend is one of those turns that if you're on the inside, you're guaranteed the position. And there goes Yeaman into 11th spot.
Well, that was coming. So all of that was coming on Dan Hall. And again, we talk about race management. That was race management from Dan Hall. The problem was he over-managed his race. He yielded to one car, and that effectively nearly created an opportunity for two more cars. One of them got through. The other one went for a moment because, well, when is that opportunity going to present itself? But have a look at what we saw on that previous straight. That Mercedes, driven by the ERT team, very, very trimmed out. The Audi, driven by Jackson Schaub, a lot of wing on board, did not have the straight line speed. Well, boys, some little bits and pieces coming our way in the middle of the race, eh? That's a good opportunity to do some learning.
It is indeed, and speaking of little tidbits, the 919 Alpha Venturi car has been given a penalty for contact with the number 44, which is interesting because we were just saying that the Alpha Venturi Porsche at the chase didn't really have anywhere to go. All they were doing was sticking to the right-hand side. What alternative did they have? Go off the track?
The depending factor on that one will be, did they straighten them out mid-corner? If they made contact a little bit earlier on, which we didn't kind of get a good enough angle to see, that straightens out the Ferrari a little bit and shoots it across the nose, yes, that would absolutely trigger it. So that's the only thing I'm thinking there.
I reckon an onboard from the 919 would tell the full story. Interesting to note as well, there is no car 44 in the session, so we will see. Oh no, it was for the drop bear car. Okay. Right. That was the incident we were talking about. All right. Meanwhile, we will move to the GT4 lead. Rick Kuznetsov and Caleb Hydes still pushing each other incredibly hard here. And, you know, there's barely anything in terms of pace between them. Kuznetsov only ran a tenth or so slower than Hydes on the last lap. And it looks like Caleb didn't have the best of runs across the top of the mountain that time. So it's still very much on Aston versus Mercedes at the top.
It's still mostly clear air for the GT4 leaders. We're not that far away from, you know, the restart. And so GT3 leaders and group haven't really come around to them just yet. It's a straight fight, first and second amongst GT4s. Yeah, here's what Reese wanted.
Yeah, here we go. So this is on board with the Alpha Venturi Porsche with that incident they were just given the penalty for. This will tell the story. I only saw the outside angle. So was this justified?
See, there it is. Yeah. See how I was talking about how they straightened them out earlier on? The angle that we had didn't show that initial contact. So the problem the other car had was they're applying steering lock, but because the car's unloaded in that right rear corner, it's pitting them in the other direction. That's a great call, actually.
All right, fair enough. So there was a bit more to that incident than we initially thought. All right, we will move on. Sean Hart in the Code 9 Esports entry. He's going hard, chasing down a Porsche and a Mercedes. This is the battle just inside the top 20. The blackout OPR car of James Golding just making the move on Daniel Hall, who is dropping like a stone right now.
You had noticed, I think there's a couple of ERT cars that are either mega fuel saving or just ended up off pace here or something. So, yeah, is it both? Both of them? No, Matthew Bowler's still running in 6th in the sister car. This is the one I've been seeing that's dropped a handful of spots through a bunch of these battles, including this here.
So the Whipperman Porsche went up the inside of the elbow, and the other Ferrari behind went, okay, thanks very much, I'll take that. Actually, 3 cars going on through. Wow. All right. So, yeah, that's interesting there from the 260. Wondering, yeah, are they on the mega fuel save? You did mention that the Mercedes was trimmed out, David, for the straights, so potentially they're just letting everyone else battle around them and just keeping their eye on the next fuel stop.
Well, interesting to know. I was just having a quick look at a couple of the driver combinations. Now, remember for the ERT guys, John Peasnick is still behind the wheel of the car that's sitting in 4th at the moment in terms of ERT. So he's done the entire race up until now. Start thinking about maximum driver time will be in the back of their minds. So they've been green flag for you for about 10 laps here, 10, 15 laps at this point in time, right in the middle of a fuel stint. So at this point in time, they're thinking about their next stop. He'll have to get out. For the other 2 ERT cars, they've actually done driver swaps. So remember, Capel was behind the wheel of the 262 Mercedes. They're sitting in a really good spot, 6th position at the moment. That's just been handed over to Bowler. Pretty much like for like in terms of your driver replacements. Now, I'll give all power to Dan Hall, but this is not his preferred format. He's a V8 supercar driver. He's just replaced Ian Ford, who was behind the wheel of the 260 car to start the stint. Ford was doing exceptionally well, also known for his V8 supercar capabilities, but just a little bit of a higher class in terms of driver. The other problem that Dan Hall's sort of got at the moment is he's really sort of focusing on 2 major series and putting a lot of work in. And I know there's been a lot of pressure on his week this week. He was trying to find time at every single step of the way to put time into this car, but he's still going to come in a little bit underprepared to his teammates, so it's that driver swap. Ian Ford was a little bit further up the field. Dan Hall's not quite able to stay there.
Ian Ford has also become well known for his endurance racing exploits, not just in GT racing, but also in Australian touring car racing as well. You always have to keep an eye out for him at the V8 Scops Enduros every single year. Meanwhile, the Orbit DBM car is now in the hands of one of our international drivers, Ethan Bass from Scotland. He was a little bit sad that the Ford GT, his love, is no longer active in GT racing, at least not part of the entry list for this race. He just made the move here. Oh, and a little bit of a switchback then from Daniel Hall. He actually runs off the track, we're hearing. Don't know if there's contact. There was a little bit of a bump. Ethan did manage to keep it nice and gentle, not go too far into the grass, but this is his first few laps in the car. An Orbit DBM, once again, smack dab in the midfield, looking to try and take advantage.
During all the qualifying yesterday, it was only Club Oz NZ drivers present, absolutely nothing else. But now you've got Daniel Ferguson, Club California on track at the moment. You've got Will Borland, Midwest, Ethan Bass, UK and Ireland. There's a few others. Eric Yeager, Club Texas, out on track. So we've got a couple more of our international drivers present at the moment.
Yeah, we're going to be seeing, I think, a few more of them along the way as they make their way through GT4 traffic. The Pulse Echuca Toyota beige machine, the GT4 entry for Pulse, dealing now with the Vermilion Motorsports McLaren behind him. Good to see that the 228 is back out on the circuit and still plugging away. They are, unfortunately, a lap down on the GT3 leaders, so they've got a bit more to work with here. Tony Baker has got a lot of GT3s to deal with. John Fillingham in the Veteran Gaming Australia green car is just up ahead of him. Unfortunately, having to give up position to the GT3s means he's lost a tiny bit of time there to John, but he's pushing hard, so that's going to be another GT4 battle eventuating there. Meanwhile, Whipperman Racing have made up another position. They're up into 14th spot now, just passing the HTS Racing Green Mercedes.
Interesting overtake I just saw for position, and I'm doing a little bit more research on who we've lost and what's going on up and down the field at the moment. So 2 retirements, and they were the 2 cars that were involved in that most recent safety car, the main triggers for that most recent safety car. The 888 Fishy Motorsports 888, there was only one driver who managed to do time behind the wheels, so unfortunately for that car, they missed out. And now the 19 purple car, which is the other Mercedes. We saw both of those cars have to take their fast repairs very, very early on. 19 car was as a cause of checkup during the safety car. The 888 was because of the incident lap on the unsafe rejoin. Unfortunately, after that second accident, the repairs were just going to be massive. They're going to be so far down that they've put a pin in it for today and taken a Sunday off. Think about the cars that are now off the lead lap. Remember, we've got a number of cars that are now at 3 laps down. Pulse Achuca Toyota, the Jinx Shifters 52 in the GT3 class, and then in the GT4 car class is the 770 Full Send Motorsports car. So think about them. Their responsibility for probably these next sort of 3-4 hours is going to be, let's grab a lap back, let's grab a lap back, let's grab a lap back. So their priority is circulating and not dropping any more laps.
Here's this group just away from the leaders in GT3, got separated by the traffic just a tiny bit there. Dylan McAuliffe from Matthew Bowler from Andre Youssef, and Daniel Ferguson, who was right on the back of them. Now a little bit further back, Veteran Gaming Australia. Mercedes is around at the chase. Doesn't look like too much damage to continue, though.
Yeah, okay. So Mark Ferranda will get that car over to pit lane, hopefully. What happened to him down at the chase here? Involved in a battle with a few GT4s, the locked-on car going for a bit of a late move, but room was given, maybe a bit too much room.
No, that's them just being circumspect about how they rejoin, which isn't the worst
And why
thing.
do they...
I don't know. Interesting.
Do they already have a bit of damage or something?
Well, I did see that they did have some damage, but I don't think there's many GT4s out there that don't have at least a few dents in them. The exception, of course, being among them the LP Racing Mercedes here, who's still struggling a little bit to hold on to that position in the top 5. They got the Slipstream Autosport Porsche Cayman up ahead of them, so this is a battle for position. Let's see if Eric Jaeger can make the move, but there's further GT3s to come behind.
Spinozzi, by the way, just took this place away from the car that's in behind him at this point in time, which has got Eric Jaeger at the rear. Jaeger got checked up by Rob Carmichael quite massively at the final corner, gave a run over to Spinozzi. Really, really interesting to watch. I've actually been following this Slipstream Autosports TikTok, social media pages, their short form video content. They're quite regularly pushing content out at the moment. It was interesting to see all 3 of their drivers in one session practicing their overtakes, running 3 wide down Conrod Straight was one of their priority videos. So they were putting a lot of effort in over the last couple of weeks to sort of get themselves into this race, and they're looking quite good as a result of it. So keep an eye on this Slipstream team. They certainly advertise themselves quite well on social media. Jump on over to their Facebook page, give it a follow, go watch some of their short form videos.
Nicely done. Well, the gap has come down for the GT4 lead, hasn't it? Eclipse Sim Sports now pressured by Altus Australia in a way that they haven't for a while. Dylan McAuliffe and Matthew Bowler still involved in their battle in GT3, just having made their way past them on the way into the second corner of the racetrack. Has to make way for yet another Ferrari. It's Andre Youssef in the Altus Australia one. Potentially Rick Kuznetsov would have appreciated that. Daniel Ferguson, meanwhile, in the WSR Esports butt kicker Audi in the midst of the battle now, making up some time. We did mention earlier that's one of the cars that has had plenty of issues getting off the start, and it is one of the quickest cars out there. Ferguson now back into the top 10.
They've gone from basically, dead last to then they had the fastest lap of the race for a little bit as they were working their way back through the field. One of the safety cars caught them back up to the tail, and they've been picking it off working their way now up inside of the top 10, not all that far away from the lead in the WSR butt kicker machine. The traffic is just brought together, brought apart this GT4 lead. There was a moment there where I think Caleb Hydes was probably very, very annoyed with Altus Australia's move down the inside of the cutting. But then WSR got in between and opened that gap back up again.
Yeah, it's all about the ebb and flow, isn't it? You can be a little bit frustrated in one moment, but it will likely come back to you in a multi-class endurance race like this. Kuznetsov had a great run through the chase there. Did you see that? He ended up catching up to Hydes in the slipstream very nicely. He is going to have to make way here for Rob Carmichael in the Vermilion Motorsports Ferrari. Former teammate, of course. Kuznetsov and Carmichael both were part of 9.5 Sim Sports. And of course, that's the nature of sim racing, Australian sim racing as well. You have multiple allegiances being made over a number of years, but everyone's still in it for the same reasons. This is a fantastic battle, and I'm looking forward to seeing how it concludes.
Well, I mean, have a look at real-world connections as well and how they all shuffle about. To be perfectly honest, I'm one that sits in the camp, so I think you should shuffle around the teams, particularly every, say, third year or so. And the reason that I think that is actually you learn more, right? If you're sitting around and you're talking to the same guys every year, you know, it's great, friendships built, you know, you can sit down and reminisce. I love going back and racing some of the endurance races with older teammates that I've worked with in the past, because it's, you know, reaching that friendship, make sure you're still hanging out with those guys. But I think one of the biggest things is that you've got to challenge yourself, you've got to learn, and you've got to get out there and be amongst different partnerships. And I'm really excited for this for Rick Kuznetsov. This is a new partnership, a new challenge for him. He's surrounded by new people who have a new philosophy and will challenge him to improve as a driver. That's what I'm looking forward to.
Oh, that's a bit of a slow car there. It looked like the 770 Porsche Cayman going slow. Obviously, they're off the lead lap by quite some margin. 4 laps down on the GT3 lead and 3 laps down on the GT4 lead. Hayden Green at the moment in the Full Send Motorsport car, which is still carrying some damage to the front right. So once again, it is survival that is the name of the game. If you are low down in the GT4 field, every chance that it could come back to you, you've just got to keep in it.
And the way that the traffic's been for the GT4 leaders there, Jake Burton in the Trans-Tasman racing car sitting third place, caught a whole second and a little bit more on them last lap and continues to, I think, home in a little bit on the battle between Eclipse and Altus. 7:45 a.m. in this session. Track temp still hasn't moved from pre-dawn. We are flatline at 24 on track.
Oh, it's just climbed a degree. Just right now, it actually just ticked over. So how about that? I use my
mind powers.
You manifested. Oh dear. Well, we're going to see that temperature climb ever further as the race wears on, as the sun gets higher in the sky. We have got about an hour left of this broadcast before we take some time off for the mid-phase of the race and come back for the race conclusion, the final 3 hours. There's going to be so much that goes on in between that. We should almost be staying around and taking notes about what's been going on because, I mean, you know, let alone a 6-hour race at Bathurst like the 1000. So much happens in, you know, even in the space of a few minutes. It becomes very difficult to get yourself recontextualized for a race conclusion.
Another lap gone, another gap closed by Jake Burton on this leading two, looking backwards from the GT4 leader at Rick Kuznetsov and Altus Australia in second, and all of the traffic appearing towards them over the top of the mountain.
I think the Veterans Gaming 103 car is having a lot of problems with reading traffic at the moment. They're sort of not leaving perhaps enough space because they just sort of cut the nose off of the 9th place GT3's overlap. So I think they're in a little bit of a difficulty. So I wonder if they've actually not got any spotters available potentially for them at the moment. So that'll be one that everyone will sort of be looking at. And the key factor I don't know if you guys do this with your endurance racing as well, but we generally have a blacklist. Or not a blacklist, but sort of a cars to be aware of. Maybe it's an orange list, an amber alert list. The drivers that are in our split. We always just want to make notes of those cars because it just, again, it's, for me, it's similar to cricket. I like using a lot of cricket analogies, you guys will notice, but it's about when I'm picking a shot or what shots I'm going to play as a cricketer. I do all the prep work beforehand. I have a look around at my field, I look at where my gaps are, and then I go, okay, I'm in this position, the ball's in this position, that means I play this shot and put it to there, which means the decision making's a lot quicker further down the line. It's the same thing, I think, with endurance racing. You go, okay, this car's going to be a little bit more pinchy in terms of these sorts of circumstances, which means I need to be a little bit more circumspect about my overtaking opportunities for those guys. Which, again, it's prep yourself, read over that list, but once again, probably 5 minutes before you hop in the car, that's what this car looks like, that's what this car looks like, that's what this car looks like, accelerates your decision making.
LP Racing's off the road, not looking like Eric Jaeger's picked up any damage. We end up with nicknames for a lot of the other cars in our race, and the spotter will say, oh, we're coming up on the Pelicans, up next car to lap you is the Prison Guards. not normally particularly complimentary nicknames, depending on how they've treated us previously. Looking at this replay here of how LP Racing have ended up off the road race.
Yeah, so they had the Slipstream Motorsport Porsche. They were trying to make a move on them, and I think Jaeger just straight up overshot the braking zone there. A little bit too late on the anchors, and so was briefly ahead, but now much further behind than they were.
Very ambitious from Jaeger, and in the end, the Hunter had to collect it.
Indeed, the Holy Grail is still a long way away for LP Racing. Jay just came up with an even better pun. Would you say that Jaeger bombed it?
I don't think the hangover will last quite as long from that one.
No, I don't think so.
That car will clean off perfectly.
Yeah, for sure. Dylan McAuliffe battling for P5, battling to keep P5, I should say. Matthew Bowler still looking as quick as ever in the ERT 262. Ian Lachlan Capel have certainly had quite a few adventures over the course of this race, but still in the top 6, looking to make further moves up. They'll have to keep an eye out for the WSR Esports butt kicker Audi. They, just a lap or two ago, made the move on Andre Youssef in the Altus Australia Ferrari, and now WSR are putting in some quick times. 2:03.6 on the last lap for Daniel Ferguson, as that's a problem for the Summit Sim Sports machine. Paul Wood, that's a familiar name. I believe I started racing with him back on Race 07. That was more than 10 years ago. Let's see what happened to Paul. He had the Pulsar Chuka Toyota Ferrari up behind him. Wondering if this was a mistake he made all on his lonesome. The Ferrari flashing its lights at him, probably looking to make a move, and they indeed did try to go up the inside. Wood, unfortunately, out on the marbles, or out where there was less grip off the racing line, just lost it.
I think he dipped a tyre in the grass on the way in there, and he was actually having problems pulling that car up. I'm pretty sure I saw tyre marks coming from that car in the grass, so I think that was related. I also saw a slow lap as well for Dan Yeaman last lap. As he come down through the dipper, encountered a massive amount of traffic. He was actually starting to punch a hole and punch clear at the front end of this GT3 pack once he got through on Dan Yeaman. He was actually bouncing forward.
Oh! Whoa! Jeez! And a little bit of a tap of the wall for Dan Yeaman. Luke Bergens seems
Matt Campbell, is that you?
Yeah, Luke Bergens seems to really like going for moves at the elbow, doesn't he? And, I mean, the expression on Dan Yeaman's face says it all.
But look at how calm he looks. He's actually not phased by that one. He's in focus mode, so he's actually in a really, really good mind space. This might change things as once again Bergens is going to get down to the inside. They get to the chase, gets the job done. Yes. But Yeaman was actually about 2 seconds clear of these guys until he encountered a huge amount of traffic right in the S's on the way down to the dipper. He's going to try and respond here, and we'll see how this goes.
Right then, across the line to begin yet another lap. 9 hours and 51 minutes to go in the race. And now Yeaman has to work himself out versus Riley Bilson. This is fantastic, the battle between Drop Bear and 9.5. It's something that we've seen on and off throughout the race so far. I would say that Luke Bergens might leave these guys behind now. Remember, the Whipperman Racing Porsche is one of those cars that's easily top 5 in terms of outright pace. Now up into 11th spot. So look for further advances from that car as these two Ferraris start to fight amongst themselves.
I think Ben Holliday's just had a spin as well in the other of the DDM cars. And he's going to have contact with, I think it was the Veterans Gaming car as they exited turn 1. So they've had a little bit of spin. It's been a horrid day for the DBM outfit. They're literally everything that could have happened just about has happened in this first couple of hours. So, but again,
oh, safety car's been called. That is a big moment right there. Wondering who specifically it's for. It is a random safety car. So, if you're unfamiliar with OSR events, there is a number between 1 and a number decided by race control. Random safety car events to, I'd say, simulate a kangaroo out on the circuit. But there was still a spin for one of the drop bear Ferraris there, the 968. Going for a spin. I believe Ethan Bass still at the wheel of that car. But under this random safety car, now many teams taking the opportunity to go into the lane.
I think it's about who isn't pitting versus who is, because this is basically the only car not stopping. 262 of Matthew Bowler. Everyone else inside of the top 20 or so has gone, all right, we're about 20-ish laps into the stint. Time to pit. And for any car that hasn't already made a driver change, it's time for a driver change as well.
think about Peasnick. Yeah, Peasnick hadn't done a driver swap. So remember we were just talking about the problem for the Peasnick car and the other that ERT car was the fact that they were sort of clamped here. Either they do a driver swap here, or they can only run for a little bit longer and they're going to come back down anyway. So they're sort of forced into this pit stop.
And there's so many driver swaps happening. So it looks like Simon Mazzomo replacing Dylan O'Shea. Cody Deeth getting into the Eclipse Sim Sports Audi. James Scott has replaced Zach Rattray White in the Vermilion Motorsports car. Raina Costello has taken over the ERT 261 from John Peasnick. We have Tom Katsadonis in the WSR Esports car. Now, the first time I encountered Katsadonis was in the Motorsport Australia Single-Seater Championship a year or two ago. Tyson Williams in the Ventra IP car taking over from Blake Neck. We have Carl Raper taking over the Whipperman Racing Porsche. Former teammate of mine is Carl, and I know from personal experience how quick he is. Max Christensen in the Dennett Racing 447 now. There's driver changes all over the place. Kevin Norman is taken over from Rob Carmichael. Oh, man, I'm losing count.
We haven't seen many GT4 driver changes to this point, but now we are. So, yeah. It is Eddie Beswick still? Seth Brown in Altus Australia. And
Emily Jones in the Trans-Tasman Racing McLaren.
There we go. First time we've seen anyone but Jake Burton in that car, including qualifying pretty much.
I tell you what, for Emily Jones, this is going to be another really, really interesting stint. I think just about the best stint I've seen her drive was actually during the Logitech Pro Series Sandown 500 last year. Out of all the co-drivers, she put together the best race of all the non-main game series drivers. So another opportunity to continue proving her worth to the Australian sim racing contingent.
Was there a stalled Mercedes GT4 in the fast lane in pit lane?
I'll have to go back and check that.
If there was, it's going now. So
yeah, okay.
Yeah.
It looked like some people were swerving around someone who didn't get her out of their pit box cleanly or something.
All right. Well, if we end up obtaining that information, we will get it to you. So, the Eclipse Sim Sports Audi has re-emerged in second place. No driver change or no pit stop yet for Evolution Racing Team 262, but that's going to change right away. They make their way into the pit lane, and it looks like Mazzomo is following them in. He's only just taken over the 9.5 Sim Sport Ferrari. Maybe they didn't put enough fuel in? Or it could be a splash and dash to extend their stint. Oh, they got a black flag for a pit lane infringement, and that's an automatically applied penalty by iRacing. So that car was too fast either on the entry or exit of the pit lane. That's a real shame for them. They might take the opportunity to get some service. The LP Racing Mercedes there is stopped on pit lane exit. I'm not too sure what's going on there with them.
They're a little too far up the exit road, mayhaps, but they'll probably be okay there because they haven't merged out.
The other thing, I went back and had a look. I did find the Mercedes you were referring to, David Haynes. It was the 103 Veteran Gaming Australia car. They were too wide on pit lane, basically.
Okay.
Was what happened. So it wasn't a stalled Mercedes. It was a multi-wide situation.
Pit exit open, and you saw LP Racing trying to get going without stalling their Mercedes, and they'll join the tail of this group. So, is it a mistake to not pit, or were they already past the pit entry for the Evolution Racing 262, where I know Lachlan Capel has gotten back in? It seems like everyone else would have had the opportunity to stop, and they didn't take it.
Is there a chance Capel wasn't in the seat and ready to go?
Yeah, potentially.
He was maybe having a pizza roll or a banana or a grinder sandwich.
Maybe.
He was
and just a note for everyone thinking of Googling it, there is a letter E in there.
Yes, there is. The other kind of grinder sandwich is not broadcast appropriate. There has been an incident under safety car. It was pointed out in the broadcast chat. Car 100, Jason Bentz, in the XCM Audi. Potentially a checkup? No, this is an interesting incident. What has happened here? Keep an eye on this car.
Have a look at this. This car's not accelerating at a massive amount of speed. I wonder whether or not they might
Look at that.
Whoa!
Hardware failure maybe for Bentz.
That's got big. New driver gets in the car and their pedals aren't calibrated until they hit the brake pedal hard enough, or they hit the throttle hard enough, or they first time they load a bit of weight onto the steering wheel and it calibrates or something.
Yeah, interesting. Well, that car has gone back into the pits and got a new bumper on it. I get the feeling that they might have used their fast repair in XCM.
It was Jason Bentz at that time as well, right? Like he hadn't just gotten into the car.
Yes, he had. It was Jackson Schaub that was
okay.
Yeah.
So.
Yep, the number 16 Race on Oz GT4, meanwhile, bit too deep.
Oh, there he is.
Okay, so we had a brief technical issue there, just for the moment. We lost production feed. Apparently, Discord being Discord for our producer, Jay Kennedy. So we are fully back up and running. That was Isaac Edwards' first lap there in the Race on Oz number 16. So it looks like he's assuming his place in the train here. Race control, I think, doing wave rounds.
On the GT4s, the cold tyres are something maniacal. They are diabolical, really. So it's surprising we don't see that happen a little more often.
Well, just did some investigating on that Jason Bentz incident under safety car. It basically what happened was the car was cresting the crown on the road and hitting the dip in coming down Mountain Straight at the same time as you applied the brake for the first time. So it sort of way overloaded the car at exactly in the wrong circumstances on cold tyres. So you're right, he was sort of testing everything. He just did it at the worst possible moment. There's another driver actually in our commentary box that's tested things and tried to burn off fuel in an Indy car at some point to put it in the barriers on a safety car. So I'll shut my mouth.
Yeah, of course, nobody's perfect.
Well, confirm it definitely says Rogue on the side of this car, not Rouge.
It does. There we go. It matches up now. Looks like Jay's fixed that for you, David.
Yeah, good. I was seeing red.
We're hearing that apparently we can blame Mike Korolev for that, him putting in the team information into the spreadsheet. Mike is infamous for having fat fingers from time to time.
It's Radion, actually.
Yeah, I'm still not clear on the XCM incident. I mean, yes, he was applying the brakes, and it would have unloaded the car a little bit. But looking at the steering wheel for Bence, it looked to me like maybe there was like a spike in the force feedback or something like that. I don't know if Bence is using a direct drive wheel, but that could be behind that incident.
They've actually pulled Bence from that car at the moment, so he's actually out of the car. They're doing a driver swap to Phil Letchford. Some of that may be damage repair, which they're back in and sort of conducting at the moment. We'll go back green flag at the end of this lap, but yeah, I'll message Bence and see if I can get what went on there.
Well, I can tell you that he has disconnected from the server, so I think he might be restarting iRacing. That is definitely a hardware issue for Jason Bence, which is a real shame because the XCM 100 car was doing quite well. Here we go. Here's the onboard. Look in the bottom left. Look at the wheel. There's the snap. Oh my goodness. So it's not a full failure of the wheel, it looks like. If it was, we would have seen the wheel go like immediately snap all the way to the left or right. It just seems to me like maybe when the car was loaded up, the force feedback motor just decided, okay, I'm going to wig out for a second here.
But it all, even the wheel and everything, lines up with when he presses the brake pedal. So I get the feeling it's like he's loaded the suspension and the suspension sort of bottomed out or something, and the steering wheel's lightened up in one of the corners, and that's the reaction of the steering wheel. I actually don't think it's a failure. I think that's just a very specific quirk at the specific set of circumstances he was in that is impossible to replicate, basically.
Yeah, well...
I get what you're saying, yeah, but yeah.
Well, that's something that we're going to get more information on, hopefully, later on. Meanwhile, we're about to get this race started again. Cody Deeth is going to lead the way. James Scott has taken over the Vermilion Motorsports number 28, and I mean, I'm sure we're all aware of how quick James Scott is. He's rapidly risen in the last few years to become one of the top drivers in the AusNZ sim racing scene. So let's get things going here and see how Scott matches up with Cody Deeth. Rainer Costello, first driver in the 261 this weekend that hasn't been John Peasnick. So this is going to be interesting to see how he handles all of the pressure starting that car from third. We got Jared Bailey taking over the Rapid Team Rennsport 911. Tom Katsadonis in the WSR Esports butt kicker car. Away we go. Cody Deeth just before Murray's corner puts the power down. And we are away. Green flag again at the OSR Bathurst 12-hour. Look at them trying to get more heat into the tyres as much as they can before they have to get on the anchors for the first turn.
Vanessa Amorosi, absolutely everybody in GT3 took fuel and tyres under the last safety car, so they're basically all working with the same stuff right now, trying to warm up those tyres very aggressively if you're the race leader. GT4, a little more split strategy.
Yeah, looking like it. We're getting three wide here in GT3. Max Christensen on the left, then Liam Kerr and Sam Sproul, who's taken over the Blackout OPR car. And, well, Liam Kerr says, no thank you. I'm going to get right out of that one. And around the outside at turn 2 goes Sam Sproul. The Blackout OPR Porsche is incredibly quick and looks like that confidence is paying dividends for them right now. Oh, someone wide at the cutting there.
The HTS green Mercedes was a bit wide, and indeed they were. Looks like they'll get it back together. Might have lost a spot or two at the cutting though.
Yeah, Chase McCubbin getting back in line. He has got Daniel Hall, Marcus Konitska, and Simon Mazzomo up behind him now, all looking to try and take advantage of that. Mazzomo sticks his nose out a little bit. The Pie Floaters car, though, is safe through McPhillamy. Not usually a spot you see passing at.
I tell you what, it's difficult at the moment. Look at the glasses on board for Simon Mazzomo.
I want to say something about it, but I don't know what I can say.
Look, he certainly looks like he belongs in about, what, 40 years ago now? The 70s to 80s? Somewhere around there?
Oh no! Middle finger racing around! Not the first time we've seen that car pointing the wrong way. Unfortunately, Gavin Barber getting spun at the elbow.
Don't think he's going to give us a wave this time around. He's got his eyes focused on the traffic, and it's such a difficult spot there on the exit of the elbow, waiting on a gap in the traffic that's not going to appear, because here comes the GT4s.
Yeah, oh, that's such a shame for MFR.
There's another car. There's a GT4 that's
254
in the
requesting a tow?
Yeah, it's a GT4.
Oh no. And that's at Skyline. That's a very dangerous spot to be stopped. John Fillingham in the Veteran Gaming Australia green car. Oh dear, might we see a safety car right away?
If that car's going nowhere.
Yeah, I'd say so. I mean, that's one of the points of the circuit. See, it's right before the track drops off into the S's, and you need to be on the left side of the circuit if you want to have any chance of getting through that sequence cleanly. The leaders are almost coming up on him, so race control will have to be quick on the mark here. They weren't before, but they are now. Safety car has been called.
Yeah. I don't think they had a choice. They absolutely did not have a choice. The problem is, with the field as closed up as they are right now, it's not as if the cars are sort of spaced out. They get a little bit more time to sort of find their way through. And they also mentioned, caution on the way to Skyline at the moment, which is critical. You will get a good view of it as you come down over McPhillamy here and get a point at it. But yeah, it's a difficult point on the racetrack.
Let's have a look at this then. First up, we're going to see the unfortunate goings-on for Middle Finger Racing. Lachlan Capel up behind Gavin Barber, and on the exit of the elbow, Capel got the power down and just got into the back of Barber. That's really unfortunate there. Not much that Gav could have done. And this is the incident for the Veteran Gamers Australia car. Have a look at this. He catches the curb and then smashes head-on into the wall.
And I think there's still some relatively cold tyres on those GT4s as well, which doesn't help you there at McPhillamy. The track drops away right as you're turning in, so the car's a bit unstable on the way from turn in to the apex. And we've seen other drivers, other cars quite commonly just get too much of that exit curb. And you're going into a closing door here as well, where the concrete on the right is closing in, the concrete on the left's right there, and into that wedge goes the Mercedes.
The wheel didn't move there. I think he hit the curb at just the right angle to make the car go airborne. There was no. I mean, keep an eye. We'll look at it again. Keep an eye on the wheel here. He doesn't move the wheel once he's turned in. So in he goes. He's tracking towards the outside and then hits the curb, and yeah, the car, I think it just loads up the rear suspension and decides to make the car go right instead of left.
Interesting one. But yeah, no, that absolutely can happen with the curb right there on the right hand side. It's quite easy to do. It's one of those ones that took similar to Suzuka, but for a different reason. At Suzuka, the curbs, you've got to either shoot straight across them because they've got this massive drainage gap in the bottom of them. These ones is because the curb's just too high. You can't sit on it. The car can't. You either drag the bottom of the car across the curbing, or you just get all out of sorts. So either way, good opportunity for if you're out of sequence again. Let's just add some fuel again. Let's play with these sliders, right? We've got track position and we've got fuel strategy, and there's a few guys that are going, well, we haven't got any track position. Let's get some fuel strategy on board.
Also, confirmation that the XCM crash was a hardware issue. Jason Bentz's wheel did bug out on him, and that's the reason why we saw that car swerve around into the wall.
Yeah. Interesting to note as well, by the way, keeping half an eye on Cody Dees. Cody actually won an opportunity to go over to Malaysia last year and participate in a Ferrari Young Driver Training Academy Day. As I believe that was part of Formula Racing Group's. They hosted sort of a special event. He won the opportunity to go over there. So he's fresh off a little bit of internal Ferrari training, albeit they may not necessarily be too happy he's behind the wheel of an Audi at the moment, but he's gotten some unique experiences coming his way in the last 12 months. His opportunity now is to start putting his head down and making sure that he pays dividends on it. And for him, he's up above 10k in terms of iRating, that's the first step. He's big, well recognized now, and what can he do over the next 12 months?
Yeah, that is the question. Setting up his 2024 very well by leading the OSR Bathurst 12-hour for Eclipse Sim Sports. Tell you what, there hasn't been much in the way of moving for position in the top 5 or so in GT3. But again, we have to consider that green flag run was only very short. So there's the safety car, I think, getting in the way of things there. How many safety cars so far in the race? I believe this is the 4th. We had 2 naturally occurring ones in the first hour, and then the randomly generated one some minutes ago. So this is...
I think it's the 5th, yeah.
This is the 5th, yeah. There was another safety car in between all of those. I'm already losing count.
So there was the 2 inside the first hour, then there was the one at the cutting, I think, is the one that you're missing. So we are
that's the one.
5.
Yep. 5 safety car periods in the 2024 OSR Bathurst 12-hour. Incidentally, number 5 pops up again. This is the 5th time that this race has been run.
Is it the car that's in 5th place at the 5th safety car that's going to win the race then?
Maybe. I mean, the number 23 is in 5th right now, and we know how pacey all the drivers are in that car. We've got Alexander Bird yet to get in that machine, and his shootout lap, obviously, David, didn't go to plan. Unfortunately lost 4/10 into turn 1, but still managed to qualify beautifully. I think we still have yet to see quite a bit of what the number 23 can do.
And there's one other driver there we haven't seen yet either, Jake Blackhall in the 23, so 4 options. Don't know if Jake is going to drive, maybe spotting, maybe he's going to drive. You can have 4 drivers if you want. So yeah, they've got 4 very good options there. Daniel Ferguson obviously did great on the start. We know what Alex Bird still has to offer. Katsudonis is sitting there with a great view of the leader, not too far ahead either.
Yeah, we're still at the phase in the race where there's no clear favourite to win. I mean, we know how quick the Eclipse Sim Sports Audi is. We're expecting that car to run away with things when we get the green flag out again, but anything can happen at the mountain. Anything can happen in endurance racing. So, it's not guaranteed. Nothing is guaranteed right now.
GT4. Not a whole lot of change on that very, very short run off of the previous safety car. Still got Slipstream, who looked like they didn't pit when just about everyone else did. So Eclipse, Altus Australia, Trans-Tasman Racing, HTS Racing Yellow, and then SLM Motorsports Pink as the top 5 there. But the cars that are behind 6th place would expect to pick one up shortly, because I don't know exactly how long Porsche GT4 is going to go, but it's already done 30 laps since the last stop.
John filling and bringing that GT4 car back out. Yep. That's the car that we saw have the heavy crash up the top of the mountain at this location, in fact. So they've gotten that car repaired, back out on the circuit. It's been a tough race for Veteran Gaming Australia.
Just trying to line up. I'm just trying to message a couple of guys to see if there's anyone available for an interview at the moment. I'm just going to try and line up Jason Bentz, but I haven't got a response from him. Matt Dent. I'd really love a really good chat with Matt Bentz, sort of pick his brain about how he's responded to these sorts of things, because that's one of the keys. Like when you're in a hole, how do you dig yourself out? How do you mentally prepare yourself? And we got Jake Burton actually that's going to jump on by for a chat as well, guys. So I'll leave you go. Reese, you want to have a chat with Jake?
Yeah, sure. Why not? Let's bring him in. I don't have admin permissions in this server, so I think I'll leave it to Jay to do that.
Couple of guys if you're going to make that sandwich.
Yeah. All right. So Jake Burton's with us now. Jake, we got Emily in the car right now. The first stint obviously didn't go 100% your way with that penalty from race control for the pass into class into McPhillamy, but you guys are still in a really good position right now.
Yeah, it's like I said after the shootout yesterday, it's sort of, trying to stay at the front and make sure that at the end you got a clean car. So we haven't absorbed up our fast repair yet. so that's handy. Got capable set of hands in Emily and Joe to finish it up. I'll probably not be back in the car until the end either. So yeah, keen to see what happens.
Yeah, you'll get a good rest, especially after the stress of that first hour. You were obviously partially involved in the incident down at Murray's Corner that was right off the first safety car restart. What was your view on that? Just traffic getting into each other?
I just think it's pretty poor safety car driving by a lot of people, not the driver themselves, not the safety car driver by any means, but I just mean, we're supposed to be maintaining a 5-car gap and there's cars all throughout the field who aren't doing that. So, there's times where you slow all the way down to 40 k's an hour and then you're doing 200 over the top trying to catch back up, and suddenly it gets down to that last corner and everyone's flying to catch the field and suddenly everyone's got to stop. So I think just some more, stable safety car driving by people under the SC will really help us.
Righto, so Emily Jones in the car right now, and did I hear you say Job Stewart is going to be taking up the car again?
No, Joe Mugford.
Joe Mugford, my apologies.
Yeah, so Joe's going to be in next, I think, and then those two will swap back and forth once again. I think the driving time and percentage requirements are quite strict, especially for us, because our sort of fuel range is about an hour and 10 minutes. So, you can't do more than 75 laps at a time, but you can't do less than 25% of the race either. So it's pretty tricky to get everyone in, but we'll sort of see how it plays out.
Yeah, thanks very much, Jay, for bringing up that information on the screen as Jake was talking about it. That's the information that you need. We're almost at the end of our broadcast here of the start of the race, but final thoughts, Jake, on what your plan is going forward here. Third place, about to go green again under this safety car period. What's the strat?
Well, I think the Eclipse car has 3 really quick drivers in it. Cobb was awesome in that first stint. He was way quicker than me, to be honest. And obviously Eddie and Caleb as well are both quick. So I think for us, it's just making sure that we stay close. Obviously the Altus car is really quick as well. I'm not sure what's happened to the LP car. That car was quick too. But basically just sort of keep it in the hunt, stay close to the front, and sort of hope for a late race safety car, and then hopefully a fight for the end. That's what we're after.
All right. We certainly hope we get another chance to chat to you, Jake. Thanks very much for joining us here in the broadcast booth.
Yeah, not a problem. Enjoy the rest of the race, guys.
Well, Jake Burton will be watching on as Emily Jones and Joe Mugford take this McLaren GT4 through the middle phase of the race. That TTR McLaren is looking like one of the quickest cars out there, and there's many drivers here who are looking for a little more out of this race. This has certainly been a fantastic opening to the OSR Bathurst 12-hour, and I mean in a pure entertainment sense. Like Jake pointed out, there was some amateur driving under safety car early on, David, but I think now that the sun's up, now that the race is in a bit of a rhythm, we're going to see that cleaned up a bit.
I think we have shaken some of the nerves out. Obviously, no one got the preparation they quite wanted for this 12-hour race. Everyone was a little on edge after that. Race start was a bit messy, but when race control are on it quickly, everyone learns what the boundaries are, learns what they will and won't get away with, and it does tidy up nicely, and we're set for a really awesome race with 9 hours, 22 minutes still to go. We've just sort of been looking at GT4, who's a chance there, 4 or 5 strong cars, a lot of strong drivers, and GT3, honestly, there's like 15 cars still with a chance the way you look at it now.
Yeah, plenty more to come. The safety car has already pulled into the pits, and Cody Deeth is going to bring us out here. And as we start counting down the minutes until we sign off for the morning, this will certainly be a fantastic middle phase of the race. Here we go then. Cody Deeth, hard on the power out of Murray's. We're back to green flag. He's already pulling out a gap over James Scott in the Vermilion car. More tyre warming from Rainer Costello in the ERT 261 as he tries to keep Jared Bailey, Tom Katsadonis, Teo Sorono, Tyson Williams, Dan Yeaman all behind him. Beautiful set of liveries, a very colourful field that that we've got racing here at Bathurst today.
That's one of the highlights. I mean, it was so difficult to pick out the liveries, but as soon as they've come to life, as soon as the tracks come to light, and we've actually got the ability to see some of these cars, look at the field as they trundle on by. So far, my favourite livery is probably the 52 car. It looks pretty, and close behind it is the number 3 car for Middle Finger Racing as well. There's some beautiful, beautiful cars out there.
Yeah, you can't miss MFR with that bright green front of that Ferrari. Gavin Barber trying to recover from, unfortunately, getting spun by Lachlan Capel out of Forest Elbow. Let's go then. GT4 Battle of the Mercs. And meanwhile, Battle of the Merc and Aston up the front of the field. Emily Jones in the TTR number 6 trying to keep Lee Vandenberg in the HTS Racing yellow car behind. On board with Lee as they come across the top. This is going to be one of Emily's first real racing laps in this car today.
We've been kind of watching, Eclipse versus Altus versus TTR versus LP racing, and then HTS Yellow are just sort of snuck in here and gone, no, we're quick. Track in this state, decent enough for the Mercedes. Got podium pace at the moment, and obviously they've kept their car clean enough. Their strategy's been decent, but off these restarts, the rear tyre grip, it just moves around a little bit too much on that Mercedes. Got to be careful.
I think one of the interesting shots that we're going to get at this point in time is have a look in the background. That's the Vermilion Motorsports McLaren cutting its way through the field. They're a GT3 car, so it's probably worthwhile riding on board with some of these GT3 cars as they cut through traffic.
Yeah, plenty of places to fall off the wagon across the top of the mountain, and that's when you're driving on your own in clear air. Meanwhile, Evolution Racing Team Mercedes, the 262, I believe, is the one we're looking at right now. Lachlan Capel chasing down Simon Mazzomo. They've fallen down the order a little bit. They are now outside the top 20 in GT3, and don't forget, under one of the previous safety car periods, they ended up staying out an extra lap versus everyone else. That's the reason why they're down so far. Simon Mazzomo, meanwhile, dealing with a pit speeding penalty in the 951 machine. Makes up a little bit of extra time on the Pie Floaters car that has been a thorn in his side for the last few laps. We shall see then what kinds of moves are made across the top, if any. It's all single file from here on out.
I'd just like to say, with Simon Mazzomo behind the wheel, he has to put up with me throwing him under the bus on Thursday night V8 Veterans broadcasts. I hope the Pie Floaters throw him under the bus. Park that bus, baby.
Speaking of the Pie Floaters, look at the line on the way in there from Konitska. He took a very narrow entry into the S's. It's looking like he's trying to line up something on the HTS Racing Green Mercedes. Oh, he thought about it. Mazzomo, meanwhile, defensive versus Lachlan Capel. What's the exit like for the ERT Mercedes? Further up, down Conrod Straight. It's on here between Team VRT and Dennett Racing. Max Christensen chasing down Liam Kerr into the chase.
And Ferraris have been good enough in a straight line, but that Porsche looking very, very balanced on the braking zone. HTS Green have been under pressure for a long time, and here comes the Pie Floaters move.
Yep, on the way through, and ERT's going to take advantage. Capel making his way past Mazzomo down Conrod Straight, gets another position for his troubles, and it looks like the Alfa Venturi Porsche is going to take advantage too. Looks like maybe the Drop Bear Motorsport car fancies it up the inside of Murray's Corner as well. Benjamin Johnson getting past the HTS car, and now further up, look at the WSR Esports butt kicker entry. Tom Katsadonis is up to speed, and he is chasing down Jared Bailey. This is looking intense.
Just having a look at some strategy at this point in time, there was a number of cars that pitted under that most recent safety car, sort of threw themselves a significant way down in terms of traffic as well. The guys that were all behind the GT4 cars, they've not really gained anything. Yeah, they got an extra stop in, but they've significantly lost out. There's a number of cars that are a little bit further up the field that are, in terms of things, there was somebody who come in at the end of lap 59 and got in and out. And by the way, there's been another penalty just come through, which I'm pretty sure we all were expecting, which was drive-through penalty for Lachlan Cable for that contact with the number 3 car. That's just been issued, so you'll see Cable jump out of this queue.
So a little bit of relief there for Middle Finger Racing and Gavin Barber, knowing that Race Control have assigned a penalty for that, but unfortunately it won't help them much for their position. One more lap to go before we end our coverage of the start of the OSR Bathurst 12-hour. Let's see if in that amount of time there is a move from Tom Katsadonis. The slipstream is so intense coming down Conrod Straight. Jared Bailey's going to have to look in his mirrors here as Katsadonis pokes the nose out. He's still not too far in to make a move there. Has to back it up a little bit, and that's compromised him. Now the Altus Australia 111 is on its way to trying to make a move himself.
So the big winners off of this race start, Eclipse Sim Sports getting to that lead. The Evolution Racing Team Porsche seems like it's really good at the start of a stint because they've bolted away from this battle 4th on back, where Rapid Team Rennsport doing a decent job of holding their position, and off the road goes Katsadonis there. Maybe to put him under pressure from Altus Australia. This is where the battle is right now.
Into the pits goes Lachlan Cable to serve that drive-through penalty. Teo Sorono trying to stick one up the inside of Tom Katsadonis. And, well, Griffin's Bend. Inside is where you want to be. And Teo Sorono makes the move.
They got to put up a give way sign there because the inside line always wins.
Yeah, absolutely does. That's created a bit of shuffling further back in the pack as well. Tyson Williams and Dan Yeaman fancy a move potentially on the WSR car, but too involved with themselves to really take advantage of that pass there. So things will calm down a little bit from that point. And, well, the lead for GT3 is not much to write home about, but the lead in GT4 still as intense as it's ever been. Eddie Beswick taking over the Eclipse Sim Sports GT4 from Caleb Hides. We have Seth Brown having taken over from Rick Kuznetsov in the Altus Australia Mercedes GT4, and those cars are still in lockstep coming through the cutting.
A couple points I'd like to make before we just tune out a little bit. I think it's time to sort of give everyone a recap of the race thus far. Early stages of the race was Matthew Dench is basically put on a roundabout as he got spun around multiple times. Big incident, lap 1, turn 1. 5 safety cars in the first 3 and 3/4 hours of this race, and it's just been about, I think the key factor was getting yourself into this race is sort of what it's been about. Just a lot of going a little bit deep, pushing the margins just a fraction too far was sort of what the first few hours were about, but everyone seems to have sorted themselves now.
Well, that's going to conclude our coverage of the race start for the 5th annual Oceanic Sim Racing Bathurst 12-hour here on SimSpeed TV. Wait another 6 hours and we'll be back to bring you the race conclusion. I'm Reese Gardner. Thanks very much to David Haynes and Scott Rankin for joining me in the comms box, and of course Jay Kennedy making all of this happen in the background. Big thanks to everyone who's been present in the YouTube chat and engaging with us. It's been great to see you all on board. Make sure to go to grip.com. We do have a pinned post there for live timing, so make sure to follow along the race in that capacity as the battles continue out on track in GT3 and GT4. We'll see you in about 6 hours' time here on SimSpeed TV.